Who are the winners and the losers in the wake of generative AI?
The train's left the station. You're not putting AI back in the box. Just not going to happen. So putting your head in the sand is not a strategy to win.
There's many people now that act like computers. Investment bankers, accountants, certain types of attorneys.
And I'm going to tell you, a machine is better at acting like a machine than you.
Is there any point at which you test the biases and assumptions of the LLM?
This is groundbreaking news, folks. Not everything you see on the internet is true. If you don't regulate, do you really trust these tech companies to have humanity's best interests at heart? History would say we should not.
What does it mean to develop competence with this technology?
Start using it to the point that you understand, more importantly, what it cannot do.
Do these technologies dovetail together? Where does Bitcoin and AI meet, if at all?
Asking it to adopt the role of some of your favorite philosophers to have a conversation with you about what is money. I don't ask AI questions. I get AI to interview me because then it will pull deeper context out of my head that will then allow it to accomplish the task at a vastly superior level.
What about governments? What does this do to the public sphere?
Our government is so inefficient.
Well, yeah. So you have written a book, The AI-Driven Leader. Subtitle, Harnessing AI to Make Faster, Smarter Decisions. This is obviously a very new wave of technology. I mean, I feel like everyone's just trying to get their feet wet with it still. And to compound that, it's changing so rapidly that, you know, by the time you learn one thing, that a new thing happens, right? We just had DeepSeek launched a couple of weeks ago, which seemed to upend a lot of things. So let's start with leadership, I guess. This is something that's a little bit more solid, tried and true. What are people's, I guess, biggest misconceptions about leadership? And then how is AI changing people's perceptions and the function of leadership?
Yeah, well, I think first and foremost, leaders have abdicated their responsibility as leaders when it comes to AI. I interviewed over 200 execs for the book one-on-one. I'm well over 1,000 now. I just haven't stopped because I always want to know where the puck is going. 100% say it's the future. 100% said that they would adopt it. Less than 5% have done anything. And the reason is they really don't know where to start. And then they think they're falling behind, which they are. But if I think about your job as a leader, I'm talking C-level, cast the vision for the organization, define your strategy, meaning how are you going to win in the future? What's your protective moat? And then to lead your team to execute between now to get to where you want to go. They're abdicating their responsibility because there's a great quote from Eric Schmidt, former CEO of Google. He said that AI is going to fundamentally change everything you know about your business in the next 5 years. Not 10, 5. He said that a year ago. So if I hear as a leader that there is a tidal wave coming that's going to literally disrupt everything I know about my business, if I'm burying my head in the sand saying, I'll get to this later, or you know what, I'll delegate this to my tech team, I've abdicated my responsibility. And I think this is the shift. I don't need a person listening to this to become the chief AI officer of their company, but I do need them to have a level of competence around the technology so they can cast a vision, so they can define their strategy, so they can lead their team forward.
What does it mean to develop competence with this technology? Is it just a matter of just using it?
Yeah, become a practice leader of the technology. Start using it to the point that you understand what it can do, and more importantly, what it cannot do. Yeah. So many people are treating AI adoption like it's the goal of the company. It's not. Building a better business and better lives is. AI is just a tool. It can help you achieve your goals. It can distract you from them. But you as a leader have to start using this to understand where it's valuable and where it's a distraction.
So when you're defining leadership there as like casting the vision, communicating the strategic initiatives of the business to your team so that they can ideally operate semi-autonomously, right? That if they know the goal, they know the direction the whole team is headed, then they can make their micro decisions that support that macro goal. But given that AI is changing so quickly and it's disrupting everything, right, from the bottom up, does that make the entire job of leadership much more complicated?
No, because this is where I think people are getting distracted by the noise. It is developing so fast. I mean, you can literally write a prompt into ChatGPT, send it, start a brand new conversation, cut and paste the exact same prompt, send it, you'll get a different response because the model has already improved. It's moving that fast. And then you got all these other tools popping up. But here's the point. For the most part, all the tools are the same. Like 80% of it's the same. And then there's the 20% that's different. The differences don't make a difference yet. If you have not become an AI-driven leader yourself, if you don't have 3 core skills, the ability to identify a high-value use case, the ability to communicate effectively with AI, and then the ability to stay in the driver's seat as the thought leader with AI as your thought partner, the tool doesn't matter. So people aren't focusing on what actually matters, which is you and your leadership.
Interesting. So are those the 3 criteria then for being a competent AI?
Those are the
leader?
3 skills that people need to develop. Yes.
And how do the people cultivate those skills specifically?
You want me to make it really simple? Grab a sticky note, a Sharpie, and write a question. How can AI help me do this? And stick it on your desk. If you have that on your desk every day, you'll be doing something. You'll see the sticky note and you go, how can AI help me review my financial statements? Real use case for me. And I went, okay, well, how can it? Let's write a prompt. I have a framework for a prompt. Context, role, interview, task. CRIT. CRIT. Context, role, interview, task. You give it lots of context on the situation. You assign it a role or a persona. You then turn the tables and ask it to interview you. I don't ask AI questions. I get AI to interview me because then it will pull deeper context out of my head that will then allow it to accomplish the task at a vastly superior level. So real use case, context, here's my financial statements. Role, you're a strategic CFO who's world-class at identifying the non-obvious insights about a business a CEO should know that they may not know based on the financials. Interview me. Ask me 1 question at a time, up to 5 questions to gain deeper context. Then your task is to give me the top 5 non-obvious insights I should know about my company that I may not know about my company based on our financial performance. I literally did that on the plane here. I do it every month now. And it all started because I had a sticky note on my desk. So when it comes to developing the skill, you just got to start using it. But most people, they're using AI one of 2 ways. They're either treating it like a Google that they ask questions to, or they're treating it like an assistant to delegate tasks to.
Right.
Both of those can bring value, but I'm going to say that's like 80% of the stuff that only drives 20% of the results.
Okay.
I just flip it on its head. I want to focus on the 20% priorities that are going to drive 80% of the results. And so that's where having a sticky note on your desk, you're doing something that matters. You're going to see it. You're going to ask, how can AI help me do this? And if you literally just write context, role, interview, task, and fill in the blanks, have fun.
Wow. And the interview is always the inversion, you said?
Yes,
so you're getting the LLM to ask you
because
questions.
we as humans, the average human is an average communicator. And your ability to succeed with AI depends on your ability to communicate effectively with it. If you put garbage in, you're going to get garbage out. Most people aren't great at giving the sufficient context required to get a high level result. So I just turn the tables and make it AI's job. And by the way, I do this in real life too. When I was building the company behind the one thing, I had developed a level of awareness that things in my mind might be crystal clear, but by the time it comes out of my mouth, it might be as clear as mud to everybody else. And so I remember I was hiring a COO, and I told this individual, your job is to interview me to pull all the information that you need out of my head so that you understand the vision, so you can turn it into a plan and you can deliver the results of the organization. At no point ever can you say, you didn't tell me that, because then I'm going to say, then you didn't ask the right questions. And this is a standard for me with my team. They know they have to sit down, ask me the questions to pull what's required out of my head so they can go execute their job. I just do the same thing with AI.
So that's interesting. Then you said you did this on the plane on the way here. So you're looking at your own company's financial statements, I assume.
Yeah. You want another one I did on the way over here?
What's that?
The core of our business is a peer-to-peer network called the AI-Driven Leadership Collective. I believe that if you try to figure out AI on your own, you're going to lose. And if you go try just to hire a consultant, they're giving you the fish, but they can't do your vision, they can't do your strategy, and they can't lead your company. You have to become an AI-driven leader. So I built this network of leaders. If you're a C-level exec in your company, you come into this network where we centralize our knowledge on how we're using this so that we're always ahead of everybody else and we beat the competition. It's growing faster than I thought. And the whole model is going to break this year. So we have like priority number one of the business is figuring out what's the model that will scale for the next 10 years. And my chief business officer sent me an email this morning that said, here's my thoughts on the scalable model for the collective. I just went to AI and engaged my own AI board of advisors that I've built. We'll dive into that in a second. Went to the board and said, here's the deck that I got from the chief business officer on what he thinks the model is that will scale. Context, here's what's happening in the background. We're scaling faster than we thought. These are the core assets of the collective that I think need to remain there, and here's why. Your role is to act as each member of the board. You need to figure out who you're going to engage, which for context, I've got Steve Jobs on my board, Warren Buffett, Jeff Bezos, Tony Hsieh, my future self 30 years into the future is on my board. It got to decide who was going to ask questions, and I had it interview me. It got to ask up to 5 questions, one at a time to gain deeper context. It then had to generate 10 alternative business models that it thought could scale faster with less effort, ranked in order of priority. I then flipped it and had it rate each of those 10 options on different verticals, from scalability, profitability, value creation at the enterprise level, value creation for the customer level on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is low and 10 is high, and stack rank by total points allowed to compress it down to the top 3 that I'm now bringing back to the team.
Okay.
I did that on the airplane here.
That sounds like expert level AI craftsmanship there.
But let me really simplify this. All I've done is I don't care about 80% of the AI use cases. I don't care about writing a better email. I don't care about my marketing copy. I don't care about my social media posts. I focus on the 20% things that drive 80% of the results in my business. I have a sticky note on my desk so that no matter what I'm doing, if I see it, I think, how can AI help me do this? And I write a prompt based on context, role, interview, task. Every single person listening to this could do what I just said with those 2 sticky notes.
Got it. Okay, so I want to go back to that then, the CRIT acronym.
Yeah.
The I, when you're having the LLM interview you, is this for purposes of conditioning you to then go into a board meeting type environment or other high pressure interrogative environments?
Sure.
Interrogative, whatever. Well, they're asking you a lot of questions. Is that what you're using it for?
More often than not, it's interviewing me. Like I give it a foundation of context. I then tell it who I want it to be. I then have it as that person with that baseline context ask questions to unearth a deeper level of context.
Right. And then are you recursively feeding that back up to the context
it's doing it.
Oh, it does it automatically.
It does it automatically.
Okay.
Also, it can accomplish the task. Now, sometimes I will have it engage as an executive coach or a board member to bulletproof my thinking. I've had it act as a marriage counselor. I've had it act as a therapist. I've had it act as a life coach. Based on the persona you give it, it will then act that way.
Okay, so you're going, the acronym sequential, right? You give it the context, which I assume is just a lot of information you're typing in. Then you tell it what role to play.
Yes.
Then you tell it to ask you questions in that role. The questioning unearths additional context. Does it then change its role on its own, or do you have to then go back?
It'll, as that role, what will happen is it will dynamically update the questions because it's getting context, and it'll then go down a deeper level. Also that it can accomplish a task.
Okay. And then what was the T?
Task.
The task. And then what did, tell me about T again?
What do you want it to do? Do you want it to
give it was asking you questions, and then what does it do with your answers to those questions?
It stores it as context to then accomplish the task.
Okay.
So like when the financial statements.
And you were saying the 5 non-obvious insights was the task.
The task was, hey, here's the top 5 things you probably should know about your business that you may not know about your business.
Okay. So mechanically, then you can do this with just a normal LLM.
I'm literally doing this with ChatGPT.
Okay, so can you just
Nothing
walk me
sexy.
through mechanically? Because like I hear what you're saying conceptually, but like mechanically, what do you actually
So
do?
I literally open ChatGPT, or it could be Claude, Gemini, Copilot, Grok. Like that really doesn't matter. The tool does not matter.
Yeah.
Your communication is what matters. First thing I will do in all caps, I'll write context. Then I'll hit enter a few times. Then I'll type role in all caps. Then I'll hit enter a few times. Interview, enter a few times. Task. That way I've now created sections.
Okay.
And then I literally just start with context, and I take cap lock off, and I just start typing, or I talk to it.
Okay.
And I just give it as much context off the top of my head that I think is valuable.
Okay.
Then I go to roll and I ask myself, who's the type of person or expertise that I want to have applied in this situation? Like if you could have access to the expertise of the world, who would you want to talk to? Or what type of expert would you want to talk to? And so it might be a strategic CFO with deep expertise in turning the financial statements into the non-obvious insights. It could be, you're my board. It could be, you're an aggressive, growth-minded board member. You are an investment banker with deep expertise in restructuring debt. You're a brand manager. All of these are real things that I have used. Interview is always the same. Interview me, ask me one question at a time, up to 3 questions, 4 questions, or 5 questions. 3 questions if I wanted to go fast, 4 questions if I wanted to go a little deeper, 5 questions if I wanted to go pretty deep. Very rarely do I give it unlimited questions. Also, so that you can gather deeper context, so you can accomplish the task of whatever the task is.
Right.
Give me the top 5 non-obvious insights. Tell me what you like about my board deck, what you don't like about my board deck, the top changes I need to make to my board deck.
And then do you repeat that process for different roles then? Or you just swap
so
out
once
the
I do
role?
that, so this is real. So what was one I did last week? I was presenting at a university. The dean of the university, this is a private women's college, needs to raise $50 million in the next 5 years. And she said, we've only raised 2. And our biggest problem is that all of our alumni are women. And the sentiment that we've got when we ask them to write the check is they say they need to go talk with their husbands. Their husbands didn't go to our school. Their husband has no affinity to our school. So we're really struggling to raise money. We've got to raise 50 million in the next 5 years. And so I went context. I'm the head of this university, gave it all the things that she said. Your role, you are a world-class fundraiser who deeply understands female psychology, especially when they defer to their husbands on important decisions. Interview me. Ask me 1 question at a time, up to 3 questions to gain deeper context. Your task is then to give me the top 5 non-obvious strategies I could deploy to raise $50 million in the next year. I compressed the timeline 5x.
Wow.
And it conducted an interview, came up with one. I said, great. Now, instead of being that person, I want you to act as a communications expert. I want you to draft the email that we can send to all our female alumni to get them to write $1 million check in the next 30 days.
Based on those strategies.
Wow. And then I waved the baton again and said, now imagine you're one of those female alumni and you just received the email. Tell me what you like about it. Tell me what you don't like about it. And tell me the top changes we need to make so you'd want to write the check.
Focus group kind of
So
thing.
it's lit. Think of it this way. Imagine an orchestra. Most people have been going through life being the player of a single instrument. With AI, you're no longer the player of an instrument.
Conductor.
You're the conductor.
Wow.
So I can wave the baton and I can get AI to act as a certain way. And then I can wave the baton and get it to act as a completely different person to give feedback on that.
Interesting.
Game changer.
Interesting. And then why do you cap the context? I'm sorry, the
questions?
The questions at 3 or 5. Like, why not just let it run?
Because it'll interview you forever. And
you get diminishing returns.
I got shit to do.
Do you get diminishing returns, I suppose?
Yeah, because sometimes it will start to go down rabbit holes that aren't helpful.
Yeah.
And this is where you gotta realize your role is to be the thought leader. AI's role is to be the thought partner. And a lot of people are making the mistake of making AI the thought leader. They ask it a question, they get an answer, they copy and paste without any human judgment.
Right.
They ask it to write a blog post. They copy and paste without any human judgment. And you can see when something's AI generated
sure.
now. That's a path to mediocrity.
Yeah.
You're in the driver's seat, it's in the passenger seat supporting you.
We were talking about that yesterday, actually, with a guest. That I don't know what it is, but there's some subconscious pattern recognition in my mind. Like when I see AI generated content, you can tell,
Yes.
or at least you think you can tell. And to me, it seems like there's some lifelessness to it. It's just something, it kind of has these repetitive ways of
Totally.
using punctuation and grammar. And so you kind of maybe pick up on that pattern. But what is it about LLM output that's lacking the vitality?
It lacks authenticity.
Yeah.
Because think about what a large language model is doing. It's just predicting the next word. So there's an input, it processes it, and predicts what it thinks the output should be. And then based on your response, it learns and becomes better. So if I say the sky is blue, it barks like a dog.
Yeah.
That's all it's doing at scale. So now if you give good prompting, you can get it to actually have the authenticity, the right tone, so on and so forth. I last week I was on stage and in front of a group of CEOs, and I wanted to show them what it looked like. So I took a real strategic plan from a company that's in the collective. Last year they did 50 million in revenue. They want to do 100 million this year. They want to do 300 million in 3 years. This is crazy growth scale. I pulled the strategic plan into ChatGPT. Context, role, interview, task. Context, here's our strategic plan. My job's been to advise the executive team. We've been growing 70% year over year. Last year we hit 50. We want to go to 100, but we want to grow 600% in the next 3 years. Your role is to act as an aggressive, growth-minded board member. Interview me, ask one question at a time, up to 3 questions to really stress test our plan. Does it have the sufficiency to drive the results? Is there a simpler path? Are there things we're saying yes to we should be saying no to? Are there things we're saying no to we should be saying yes to? Your task is then, what did I ask it to do as a task? Give me the top 3 areas of insufficiency that we would have to plug in the next 30 days to ensure we hit our goals. And it did it, and it spat out this answer. It was mind-blowing. It was really good. It was 100% accurate. And I then wove the baton and said, great, now you're a communication expert. I need you to send this to the executive, create the email that I'm going to send to the executive team, but I want you to strike the right tone. I want it to be 80% my voice, 10% Simon Sinek, and 10% David Goggins. And what came out was awesome. Like the CEOs in the room, their mind was blown. And then I waved the baton again and said, now you're one of the people on the C team that's going to receive this. You came out of the offsite 3 weeks ago. You're probably swamped with work. This probably feels like more things to do. Make sure this is written in a way that you would receive it and want to run through walls with a smile on your face.
That was the actual prompt?
That was literally what I said.
Wow.
Everything I'm saying is actually what I type.
Yeah.
And what it spat out was copy paste worthy. It was that good.
So it does. So the output from the LLM, in your opinion, does become copy paste worthy the more specific you get with a prompt.
But let's be clear. I'm still the thought leader. I still review every word, and I might change a handful of words in that email.
Yeah.
But like it had a lot of emojis. I deleted all the. I'm not an emoji guy.
Yeah.
So those went bye-bye. But yeah, most people, if you ask it to create content, it'll get you 40 to 60% of the way there.
Yeah.
But if with the right prompting, you can get 90% plus.
Got it. And then so eventually when you're at a final product, you take that and revise it yourself before
Yeah, you take it offline and do the final polish.
Gotcha. Do you have any concerns about, like when you're talking about proprietary data or business strategy of a private company, do you have any concerns that an OpenAI or whoever counterparty would see that or?
So I said every tool is the same and every tool is different and the difference doesn't make a difference. What does matter is having a tool that meets your privacy and security provisions. So you ask the right question.
Yeah.
You got 2 high-level avenues. Option 1 is you can take off-the-shelf large language models.
Yeah.
Option 2 is you can go enterprise. Enterprise is where you're taking ChatGPT or Claude, Gemini, Copilot, pulling it into your own AWS or Azure
your
instance
own
where
instance.
you have a security
Got it.
team
Okay.
that's controlling the walled garden.
Yeah.
Big companies do that. For 99% of the people in the world, they're going to do off the shelf.
Yeah.
As of today, there are 3 models you can get to not train on your data. ChatGPT, Teams. The $20 a month one, the pro version, still trains on your data, but you can go into settings and turn it off. But if you do ChatGPT Teams, it automatically establishes an instance for your company where it doesn't train on your data.
Okay.
Most people are using that. Copilot offers the same thing. That's just ChatGPT with a Microsoft wrapper on it at $30 a month, doesn't train on your data. Claude from Anthropic does not train on your data.
Okay.
To my knowledge, those are the 3 that you can get to not train on your data. This is not, but we're not even getting into the open source ones that you could download into your own instance. Like that's complicated.
So taking your own, using off the shelf, not training on your data, that's $30-ish dollars a month. What is the price point of this taking your own instance into your own AWS?
You're in the 6 figures.
6 figures.
Probably.
Wow.
Because now you're paying token costs, and depending on how many people that you have, it can vary.
So that's very much an enterprise solution.
Yes.
Versus.
But at the same time, you also have to realize the number one line item on most P&Ls is headcount.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to make the argument that most people are going through their days doing the things that do not deliver the most value to a company.
Sure.
Checking email or Slack, sitting in meetings, and then focusing on their to-do list.
Yeah.
Most of which is 80% stuff that drives 20% of the results.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can, for the cost of one employee, suddenly arm them with a tool that could augment or automate about half of what they do to free them up from all the tactical low value things, which is really them acting like machines, by the way, to free them up to harness their strengths as humans, focus them on the 20% priors of their role in alignment with the company goals, and use AI to enhance them, not to replace them. It's one of the best investments you can make.
So I would assume then you're advocating for making LLMs like a core component of cultural DNA at any business.
If
every
you're
business.
not, you're not going to make it. Period.
Yeah.
Full
Right,
stop.
Right. This is like gunpowder.
That's
kind of
like
thing.
saying we refuse to use Microsoft Excel, the internet,
Right.
and calculators.
Right.
We
Sure,
refuse.
sure. Yeah.
That's where this is going.
So how do you suggest, I guess let's ask it 2 different ways. One, if you're a startup organization, it's probably a lot easier to encode that into
Totally.
your DNA. But if you're an existing organization,
Yes.
there's some inertia to overcome. How do you suggest the startup do it versus the legacy
Answer is the
organization?
same. Leaders go first. And this is one of the mistakes that's been happening. And look, I felt this as well. Prior to writing the book and building this company, I was the chief growth officer for a company of about 100,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
When I stepped in, the market cap was at 750 million. When I left, it was at 12 billion.
Mm-hmm.
When I saw AI for the first time, I thought this is incredible. And I wanted to dive in. But then I thought, I'm so busy. I have so many other things that I need to do. And then I thought, you know what? I'll just delegate this to the tech team. But then I was reminded of a piece of advice I received my senior year of college. I was doing an internship. Right before graduation, I sit down with the CEO and I asked him what job he thought I should get after school. He looks at me and he says, "You're asking the wrong question." It's the first time in my life that I've been introduced to the power of asking the right questions. And he said, you should be asking, what are the skills I can master that are so valuable, they'll serve me no matter where I go. Then go find jobs that will help you build those skills. Best career advice I've ever received. So while there was part of me in that moment when I saw ChatGPT that said, I'll get to it later or I'll delegate it, there was the other part of me that said, I think this is a skill that's worth mastering. I think this will serve you no matter where you go. I have validated that to be true. So whether you are a startup to whether you're an established company to enterprise, this is not a technical challenge. This is a leadership imperative. You have to get some foundational competence with this. It's like, imagine if you'd only seen black and white and I asked you to describe the color of these walls.
Right.
You can't do it.
Yeah.
A leader can't define what the vision of the company is, their strategy for how they're going to win, how they're going to lead their people, how jobs are going to change, or to handle the fear problem. If you yourself aren't using it, it's just not going to happen.
That makes a lot of sense. So when we look at, I'm going to call it AI, but with the understanding we're talking about LLMs, basically,
Yes.
right? It's the
Generative AI.
generative AI. Okay, we'll use that as our terminology. When it comes to the skills necessary to wield generative AI competently, are we talking about linguistics, philosophy? Like, what are the skill sets people should be focusing on to use this thing very competently?
It's the three I mentioned earlier. Then there's the use case. The ability to identify the right use case, to communicate effectively with AI, and stay in the driver's seat as the thought leader. Those are the skills. You focus on those 20% things, 80% of your results plus come.
Can you melt that down a little more, distill that into actual specific
Sure.
skills, though?
Sure. When I think of different use cases, first one is strategic thinking.
Yeah.
There is stuff on a weekly basis that you are thinking through, and you're doing it based on your ability to recall the information you've learned, the experiences you've had. But this is where things get a little crazy. You're well read. How many books do you think you've read in your life?
I don't. I mean, maybe 1,000.
Cool.
Yeah.
What percent of that collective knowledge, every word, can you recall and apply right now?
I mean, right now,
This second.
such a small percentage. It's not even infinitesimally small.
0.1%.
Yeah.
You've been very successful based on your ability to recall the minority of the information you've learned, which is the minority of the information of the world. That's the human processing power. Now let's compare it to AI. These models so far have been trained on 200 million books worth of data. Guess what percent it can recall?
All of it.
100%. Guess how long it takes it to comb through 200 million books worth of data for your very specific use case?
No idea.
Under a second.
Wow.
So when I say strategic thinking, it's like, why in the world would you do your thinking alone versus tapping a thought partner to say, here's the situation. I want you to act as this type of a person and interview me to help me clarify my thinking or help me see things that I don't see. And then, after you asked a certain number of questions, I want you to complete this task. It's not to replace your thinking. It's to enhance your thinking.
Right.
That's number one. Number two is decision making. Anytime you have to make a decision, I love going to AI to say, hey, I've got to make a decision. I see these three options. Your role is to act as my thought partner, interview me, ask me one question at a time, up to 5 questions. And then the task is I want you to tell me the pros and cons of each option and which one you would pick and why. Or help me see if there are non-obvious solutions I should be thinking about that I'm currently missing. That's decision making. Content creation. 80% of the time in creating any content is just getting to a first draft. Then you polish. AI can get you to a first draft in seconds. Then you can apply your human judgment to polish it. It collapses the time to create content, and the creativity can go through the roof if you learn how to stay in the driver's seat as the thought leader. Then there's content thinking, decision making, content idea generation. Coming up with ideas. So like I wanted 10 non-obvious ways, alternative business models to scale my company. I actually had it one time. I read a study that said the best decisions they come from having the biggest variety of answers. And this is not like having 5 to choose from. It's like 100. And so I asked it to come up with 100 alternative ideas. And then I flipped it and said, great, now interview me and then compress it to the top 3. But my favorite for idea generation is non-obvious strategies because it's so tough to read the label when you're inside the box and people confuse a solution with the best solution. And so I will have it interview to give me strategies or solutions that I'm not currently thinking of just to expand my perspective. That's huge. And then finally, analysis, whether it's analyzing a CSV file like my financial statements to a data set to analyzing content, like having it review the email as the executive that's receiving it, or evaluating ideas. Hey, I have an idea for this business type, this business model. Act as my ideal customer and give me feedback on it. What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? What are the top changes I need to make to it? Those 5 right there, start there.
Wow. The farm at Okefenokee is a revolutionary new regenerative agricultural community. It features an 8,000 tree olive orchard, which they use to make their own olive oil, as well as a very large pecan orchard. All the animals on the farm are heritage animals, with some varieties over 100 years old and others thousands of years old. Fresh eggs are produced daily by the farm's chickens. Also, there are over 1,000 beehives that pollinate the over 200 heirloom fruits and vegetables and provide honey to all the residents. The farm makes its own molasses, unrefined sugar, herbs, and spices. The farm also features an herbal apothecary and a commercial kitchen. These are just a few reasons why the farm is the healthiest place on earth. To learn more about the healthiest place on earth, go to okefarm.com and use discount code BREEDLOVE for $21,000 off custom cabin pricing. Again, to learn more about the farm at Okefenokee, go to okefarm.com and be sure to tell them I sent you. iCoin Technology has released a slick new hardware wallet. It looks like a mini iPhone with a high-res 3-inch touchscreen and camera on it. The device has no Wi-Fi, no cellular connection, and no GPS. It is an air-gapped hardware wallet which uses QR codes and a camera to communicate with the Bitcoin network. It has a built-in camera which is required for air-gap operation, and it has an optional Bluetooth compatibility. It's really a brand new user interface and user experience for a Bitcoin hardware wallet. iCoin makes self-custody accessible, easy to use, and non-intimidating. It even comes with an optional custom iCoin thermal printer, so you can print out the private key and its associated QR code when you're setting up the wallet. This makes setup quick and simple. Also, it is easy to restore the wallet just by reading the seed phrase QR code with the wallet camera. And as we always talk about on this show, the only way you can truly own your Bitcoin is by having it in self-custody. So you need a device like the iCoin wallet to truly own your Bitcoin. So go to iCointechnology.com/breedlove today for 30% off the purchase of this sleek new hardware wallet. Again, that's iCointechnology.com/breedlove. I want to ask you a selfish question then. I have been working on a book for a long period of time.
How long?
Well, it's kind of like asking when World War I started, so it depends on where you draw the line. But I would say at least 7 years.
What if I told you could be done in the next 90 days?
Well, this is where I'm going with, thank you for preempting me, but yes,
and it actually be your words.
And okay, and so here's what I have. I have roughly 100-page draft. I probably have another 500 to 600 pages of notes that are just very rough, unstructured, like jotting down a thought, putting in a link or an image from stuff I'm finding online, social media, etc. I have been using the LLM to like take a certain passage or paragraph and say, hey, rewrite this, keep the core ideas or themes, but rewrite it in a better way. I actually even told it to write like me at one point, and it was writing better than me, like me, which was crazy. What other more sophisticated strategies could I consider to help to use an LLM to help accelerate me towards the goal of publishing by the end of the year?
So first, a quote that I learned from my old business partner, Gary Keller, who started Keller Williams. He said, anytime you're hitting a ceiling of achievement, you're just missing a person. When I knew I wanted to write the AI-driven leader, before I even knew what the title was or even what the book was going to be about, I knew I was missing a person. I didn't know how to write a book. Even though I had turned a previous business book, The One Thing, into a company, I had never written one myself. So I knew I was missing a person. I called a buddy, Tucker Max, who's a prolific author. I asked him who I should hire, and he gave me the name of his buddy, Charlie Hone, who owns a company called Author.inc, I-N-K. You should look it up. Charlie's the best in the world for business books. He helped Tim Ferriss do his, Ramit Sethi do his. He helped me do mine. Cody Sanchez, he just helped her do her book. He has helped people sell millions of copies. I called him. He coached me every step of the way. And he told me that 90% of first-time authors don't even make it to a draft. Because it's just so damn hard. You've been at it for 7 years.
It's extremely hard.
Of the 10% that do, it takes them on average 2 to 5 years to finish their book. He told me, I will get you to a manuscript within a year, guaranteed. I had no idea that just getting to my first draft would only take 39 days. And that I would be start to finish done, like done, in 5 months flat.
Because of the LLM.
Now here's how we used it. I first started, I had it interview me to identify the one person I was writing this book for. And I came up with an innovative, ambitious, growth-minded, collaborative, C-level executive who's non-technical, who knows AI is the future, does not know where to start, thinks they're falling behind, and really needs to understand how to go from 0 to 1. That's my ICP, my ideal client profile. I then had it interview me to come up with a value proposition for the book. What it generated was about 80% right. I took that offline, polished it. I then said, this is my ideal reader. Here's the value prop of the book. Give me a table of contents. In 1 second, it gave me a table of contents that was 100% wrong. But because it was wrong, it was so easy to see what should be right. And I was like, but here's what's missing. And I don't care about this. I really care about this. I had something to react to versus a blank page.
Yeah.
I had something to react to. And this is where Charlie's advice came in.
That's powerful.
He said, I want you to pull together a group of CEOs on Zoom, and I want you to use your table of contents as a guide, and then use your superpower, which is speaking. I can just speak off the cuff for hours. And I want you just to talk about each chapter. That's it, just riff. I went for 2 hours and had an AI note taker transcribing every word. I went back to AI and used a prompt where I said, here's the ideal reader, here's the value prop of the book, here's the table of contents, here's a transcript of my words talking about each chapter, using my words only, acting as a New York Times best-selling author. I want you to create a chapter outline for every chapter adhering to this structure, which Charlie gave me. He said every chapter has to follow this specific sequence for it to be a smooth and compelling read. It literally created a full chapter outline of the book in seconds. That was 6 months of work. Then I waved the baton and said, now be my ideal reader. Tell me what you like about every chapter. Tell me what you don't like about every chapter. Tell me the top changes I would have to make so that you want to buy a copy for everybody in your company. And it did it for every chapter. And then I waved the baton again and said, now you're a New York Times bestselling editor. I want you to make those changes and smooth everything out. Done. Now turn this into a manuscript. And it spat out a manuscript. Then I hired a real professional editor who took that, which I had reviewed and made some changes to. She then moved things around and started saying, all right, I need a story here, or this I can already tell isn't your voice. And basically she helped me move things around. And then I went through and rewrote literally every sentence. So every AI helped me write every word, but every word is mine.
Right.
It just collapsed the time it took me to get to that state.
I really like that having an idea of what is not right is very useful for getting to what is right.
Well, think about how you find your ultimate career. Is you did a ton of jobs that you hated.
Yeah.
Your 20s is all about exclusion.
Yeah, I mean, argumentation, dialogue, all of these things, right? We'll use metaphor and analogy to try to describe a thing.
Yeah.
But that also, you'll emphasize certain aspects of it and de-emphasize others.
Yeah.
So in learning what it's not, you kind of learn what it is.
Yeah.
There's this process of elimination. Also in humor, right? It's much easier for me, at least. I'm not a comedian, but to react to people with humor, like to have something to react to is very useful. So that lands with me a lot.
Here's what's crazy. That's when Charlie started with me. I was his guinea pig.
Yeah.
he now has the process so dialed in. Like you could literally, I think you'd spend like 1 or 2 days with him asking you questions, and you'd literally have a transcript within 24 hours, a manuscript of your book in 24 hours. Then you hire an editor and they do the rest. I'm not kidding. You could literally be done in the next 90 days.
And Charlie was not using an LLM, right? This was your...
He was.
Oh, he was.
He was.
Okay.
He had his own sophisticated prompts he was doing,
Okay.
but then I was doing my own prompts as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So then because your superpower is talking, because I think actually I'm a better, as I think, I'm not sure, but I think I'm a better talker than I am writer, actually. Yes. So I do like the idea of being able to talk something out and then have the AI capture that.
That was his biggest pro tip for me is he's like, instead of trying to get something on a page by typing it,
yeah,
just turn your AI note taker on and talk it out. Just talk it out. Don't worry about the editing. Don't worry about the punctuation. Don't worry about if you mess up. Like literally just talk your ideas out, because that's also the thing that I get from the book is people will say, literally busy CEOs who don't sit down and read books will blast through half the book in a day. And they're like, it was such an easy and compelling read. It's because not only did I talk it out in terms of the manuscript generation, but when it came time to final line edits, Charlie told me, read everything out loud.
Absolutely. I do
because something sounds fine if you're just reading it and hearing it in your head, but when you have to physically speak it, you realize that you say things different.
That's right.
And literally edit it to how you naturally speak, and it'll be a way better read.
I can 100% verify that, because everything that I have published in the last 2 or 3 rounds of editing, I read it all out loud.
And you totally make changes.
It puts beauty into it. It makes it so phonetic or smooth. And then when people are reading internally, they're like, "Wow, how are you such a good?"
It's like you're talking to me, because I am.
Yeah. It's the process of refinement that makes it so good. It's not. I actually don't consider myself a great writer, but I do refine the shit out of it to the point where it's pretty good at the end. But it's that out loud reading towards the end is absolutely critical.
Nailed it.
Okay.
So hold on, time out. You've been going for 7 years.
Yeah, I feel like I've overstated that now. I have published things. I've published things online, and those things are part of the book, but they're not the book itself. I've been trying to figure out what I wanted to say, and I've been reading a lot for 7 years, and I have been writing and publishing, but I've been intending to publish a book for about 7 years. Yeah.
Is this important to you?
Extremely.
Why?
I think hopefully, I'm not deceiving myself, that I have put together a novel perspective on how reality works. And I feel it's important to share that with other people so that they can gain a deeper insight into how the world works and maybe how they work.
When would you like to have it published by?
This current deadline I've set for myself, which is scary to say out loud, is December 31st, 2025.
You're thinking too small.
What do you mean?
You're thinking too small.
Too late, you mean?
Too late. Here's where it gets crazy. Today is March 5th, 25. February 8th of 24. So literally a year and a month ago was the day that I said to Charlie, let's go. I'm going to write the book. Let's do this. February 8th, March, April, May, June. By July 8th, I was done. The book was published by September 16th.
Yeah.
So you could and Charlie's process is faster now. December's too late.
Let me ask something else, though, because my book is distinctly, I haven't read your book, but I'm going to guess because it's a business book. It's a book intended for business executives, I believe, having not read it.
Fair.
My book is much more of like a probably philosophical treatise type book. So there's a lot of other books that are ending up in my book, right? It's not just ideas from my head. I mean, it's things that I've read and they're all over the place. How do I feed the LLM all of this data and have it synthesized? Like, what is the best approach?
Wrong question.
Okay, what's the right question?
Who am I missing that if I could bring into my world could make this my reality?
Okay.
I'll always remember this is back when I was building the company for the one thing. I had 2 partners, Gary Keller, who started Keller Williams, and then his co-author, Jay Papazian. Jay looked at me and he said, do you know the difference between a millionaire and a billionaire? And I said, no, but I grabbed a pen and a paper very, very fast. And he said, a millionaire sees an opportunity and asks, how can I do it? A billionaire sees an opportunity and doesn't lift a pinky until they find somebody to do it for him. And I watched Gary very closely. I can't say how many companies he owns. It's more than we have fingers and toes. He runs none of them. He controls all of them. He's a multi-billionaire. He is a master of this. It left a deep impression on me to the point that when I started this company, AI Leadership, I was so clear on what my unique ability is. And from day one, I have been playing who, not how. And I'm not going to flex outside of the places that are my superpower, that bring disruptive value, that light me up every single day. Doing this, the thought leadership, is a big part of it. And I'm just finding who's to bring in. Man, it's crazy how much easier life is, how much fast we are scaling, how much better the quality of output is. You don't need to figure all this out. You're just missing a person.
So how do you find the who's?
Dude, I already got you. I'll make an intro.
Well, for people that maybe don't have the fortunate friend in a chair across from them that has the contact, how can people find the who's? What are the strategies for finding the who's instead of the how's?
Now we're going back to before I started the company behind the one thing. I was in medical device sales. And I was waking up every day, running through hospitals, selling a device to save lives, trying to get my wife to call me McDreamy, but I didn't have hair like you at that time.
You do now.
Growing it out. Gotta finally get that one done. But every day I felt deeply like I was playing below my potential. And for somebody whose number one core value is growth, it was actually painful. And I remember hearing the Jim Rohn quote that you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Yeah.
I actually did something most people haven't done, which is I actually grabbed a pen and a piece of paper and wrote down the names of the 5 people I was spending the most time with. I wrote down the names of 5 amazing friends. The realization was I had 5 amazing friends. I had 0 amazing mentors. Because I wanted to start a business. I wanted to get into entrepreneurship, but I was seeking guidance from people who were not qualified to give it on how to do it. No wonder I was failing. I didn't know who those people were. But what I started doing is I got very clear on what I was looking for. And I realized most conversations start with somebody saying, what's up? What's new? What's going on? And the common answer is not much. What a terrible answer, first and foremost. I actually just started answering the question. People would say, what's new? And I'd say, actually, I've gotten clarity. I really want to get into entrepreneurship, and I'm looking to surround myself with successful business owners that I can seek guidance on the steps that I should take. It was amazing how fast people were willing to say, open their Rolodex and saying, oh my gosh, I know this person. Because it feels better to give than to receive. So people love to give help. If you get clear on who you are missing in your world and you start telling people every day, I give you 30 days or less until you're talking to the person.
So just a matter of setting the intention
and communicating it openly.
It.
And I have done this so many times in my life. Constant. I'm always clear on who I'm missing in my world. I'm always talking about it.
And then, so did you go from spending time with those 5 friends to these 5 mentors?
Yeah. So this got crazy. You fast forward in a very short period of time, I find myself being mentored by some pretty wild people. Like the guy who built Tony Robbins' company. He was his SVP of sales. He's the first guy Tony ever trained to speak on stage for him, became a mentor. He trained me to speak. He now works for me. He was a mentor of mine. He became a friend. And now when I've been building AI leadership, I've been missing a person on the sales side. He just came in to build all of our sales systems. The same stuff he did for Tony Robbins, he's doing for us.
Amazing.
So I actually started a podcast at the time called The Mentee, where I was the mentee and I started recording private conversations with my mentors. That's how I actually got into a relationship with Jay Papasan, who co-authored The One Thing. I interviewed him for the show. And we formed a relationship, and I ended up being the perfect person they were looking for.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's one thing the LLM can't help you with, right? It's getting the right people around you.
And this is the thing. there's so much fear that AI is going to replace people. It's not.
Yeah.
It's going to enhance you. I went back and I studied every past technological disruption from printing press, steam engine, assembly line, electricity, internet. I wanted to, like, history repeats itself. I want to know what happened in the past. What are the patterns that are relevant now? And what I realized is that a job is nothing more than skills you apply and processes you follow. Tech has always changed the skills that we applied and the processes that were followed.
Yeah.
And this is where you just have to realize what the person, it's not like the person just evaporated from this planet. A skill they were applying, like lighting oil in streetlights,
Yeah. Became irrelevant.
because of the light bulb.
Yeah.
What happened to the person? They
Freedom.
acquired a new skill.
Yeah.
Every single person right now is harnessing skills that at one point in time in their life they did not have. You can do this. You can learn new skills.
Yes.
And I believe this is great because we actually had to set aside what makes us human to meet the needs of the machine in the Industrial Revolution. We literally act like machines. When we show up to work on time, do a repetitive task with minimal error, with maximum efficiency, you are acting like a machine.
And there's many people now that act like computers, right? Investment bankers, accountants, certain types of attorneys.
Bingo. Paralegals. And I'm going to tell you, a machine is better at acting like a machine than you.
Yes.
But this is where I don't think this is the great disruptor. I think it's the great liberator.
Yes.
It's going to return us to what makes us us. The ability to think strategically, to problem solve, to communicate, to collaborate, to create. These are strengths of humans that most people have not flexed.
Yeah.
So it's a chance to return us to what makes us us and actually harness those strengths in a more impactful way.
I agree completely. And I think that is sort of the defining feature of any successful technology is that it's a time saver, right? You don't need to do that thing anymore, or you don't have to do the thing anymore, as you said, with the oil fueled street lamps, or you can do the thing a lot quicker, right? Or you can automate it or whatever it may be. But all of that means more productivity.
Yes.
Which is higher standard of living, more freedom.
Yes.
Of course, you might need to retool yourself, right? If you were the lamp oil guy.
Yes.
But it's a creative form of destruction.
You read 10x is easier than 2x?
No.
So Dan Sullivan wrote the book. The high level premise is if you want to double your growth or double your income, you can keep doing 80% of what you do today. You only have to change 20%. But if you want a 10x, you got to stop doing 80% of what you currently do. Hold on to the core 20 that drives 80% of the results and move the balance 80 to a higher level of capability. When I saw AI, I found myself asking, how do I 10x myself? And so I had to look backwards. Well, what's taken 80% of my time? When I was building the company for the one thing, I was the coach or advisor to executive teams. I was facilitating the strategic offsites. I was asking the right questions. That took 80% of my time. That's what led me to think, well, can I get AI to ask me the right questions? That's where this whole thing came from. I wanted to use this to free me up from who I used to be so I could reimagine who I could become.
Yeah. That's what a growth-oriented person would do. So that makes a lot of sense. Forget multivitamins and other supplements. Animal organs are the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet. You can get 100 times more nutrients from organs than you can from muscle meats. But the problem with eating organs is that they are difficult to find in stores, they are difficult to prepare, and even when they are prepared well, they often don't taste great. Thankfully, Heart and Soil Supplements has made consuming organ meats so much easier by providing powderized organs in capsule form. Organ meats include everything your body needs to thrive: vitamins, minerals, peptides, proteins, and growth factors. This is why organ meats were the most prized foods for our ancestors. Fortunately for us, Heart and Soil makes these treasured foods easily accessible. So go to heartandsoil.co today and use discount code BREEDLOVE to get started on your journey to optimal health and vitality. Again, that's heartandsoil.co, discount code BREEDLOVE. Have you ever wanted to start a business in the Bitcoin space? If so, then the Wolf Startup Accelerator could be for you. Wolf is the first startup accelerator dedicated exclusively to businesses developing in the Bitcoin Lightning Network. 4 times each year, Wolf brings teams from around the world to New York City to work with like-minded entrepreneurs, pushing the boundaries of what's possible with Bitcoin and Lightning. The program is designed to help early-stage companies achieve product-market fit, develop their brand, secure early-stage funding, and grow businesses that fuel the global adoption of Bitcoin. Go to wolfnyc.com to learn more or apply today. Again, that's Wolf, WOLFNYC.com. I'm glad you brought up technological innovations across history, because that was a question I wanted to ask you actually. Sure. Is like, where do you, in the effort to try and get our head around the implications of generative AI, what historical analogies are relevant?
Yeah.
You know, like I've heard it. This was in a conversation with my wife, that what the calculator did for numeracy, the LLM would do for literacy, something like that.
And people freaked out, by the way, when the calculator came out.
Yeah.
They said it was going to be the end of human thinking.
Yeah. Every innovation seems to get this response.
Said the same thing about Microsoft Excel.
Yeah.
Said the same thing about the internet.
Yeah. And it's amplified our cognition every time.
Because we were born to evolve and grow. Evolution is in our DNA. It's a strength, but we resist it because we fear change.
Yeah. And innovation is non-biological evolution, basically. So what of all these historical technological revolutions you've studied, which are most applicable or useful to understanding the implications of generative AI?
I wouldn't look at it through that frame. I mean, I think the fear and the fear of job loss around this, which I don't want to downplay it. There will be people that lose their jobs. Mm-hmm. But scribes lost their jobs when the printing press came out. The people who lit the street lamps lost their jobs when the light bulb came out. The people who used to, craftsmen lost their jobs when the assembly line came out. Though there's always been job displacement. And then there was a period where things were a little rough for a season, but then people got on the bandwagon with the new technology. More jobs were always created.
Yeah.
Standard of living always improved.
Yeah.
There were always downsides that came with it. Like you look at the internet and you look at social media, I think that's a great example of us abdicating our responsibility as thought leaders. Mm-hmm. When you look at the data we've allowed them to capture, the impact that it has on psychology of adults, let alone kids, when it comes to depression and suicide, that's a big lesson right there, which is where I think like when it comes to AI, how do we not repeat the same mistakes?
Yeah.
How do we make sure we stay in the driver's seat? The challenge is the train's left the station. You're not putting AI back in the box.
Yeah.
Just not going to happen. So putting your head in the sand is not a strategy to win. Developing a level of competence with this by becoming an AI-driven leader so that you can be a steward. So this actually helps us build better businesses and better lives. I think is the real opportunity.
If you had to speculate about the transformative impact of generative AI, like is it the magnitude of alphabetic literacy, or is it the steam engine?
It's bigger than anything we've ever seen.
Bigger than anything.
Bigger than anything we've ever seen. Here's the challenge. Because it's generative and the pace that it's moving at, we haven't even scratched the surface. We can't even imagine where things are going or what will become. Right. It's like when the internet came out, you trying to describe Uber. Yeah. You just can't see that far ahead. Yeah. And frankly, I think about it sometimes. I ask those questions, but I don't invest a lot of time asking those questions because it's not something that is going to change who I can become today. It's not going to inform the type of person I want to be, the impact that I want to make. And so I invest more time in that area.
But in general, you think it's a massive liberator of human time, right? It's going to increase our productivity
1,000%.
A lot.
1,000%.
Yeah.
1,000%.
I mean, because the way you're describing this is you become like a one-man organization in a way.
But now imagine, like when I think of org charts, I think of the human org chart, but then I imagine like if that's in pen,
Yeah.
then in pencil behind it is the AI agent org chart that supports every human. That takes 80% of the tactical low-level stuff off their plate
Yeah.
and allows them to elevate to what makes them human. It's a different ballgame.
Yeah.
And I mean, man, we could talk for hours on use cases in terms of how I have used this to do either things I physically could not have ever done before, or to do things in a fraction
Yeah.
of the time with exceptionally higher quality. This has absolutely enhanced me.
Let's have another one of the use cases then, because I know I have this tendency to get off into the philosophical sometimes, but I know it's
So here,
difficult for people, and it's good to bring it down to earth with some really good examples. So what's
Yeah.
another powerful use case you've used?
everything that I come from is one is based on a question. What if your biggest threat in business was not your competition, but it was how you were thinking?
Mm-hmm.
I genuinely believe that your ability to think strategically is the difference between growth or decline. Another CEO in the collective, venture-backed company, been working toward an exit in the next 24 months. Biggest challenge is a hostile board.
Mm-hmm.
Every quarter is an absolute bloodbath. And he calls me. He's like, dude, our board is so dysfunctional. It's like all these guys have all this childhood trauma they've never healed that they just think they get to take out on us. And literally half of the executive team's time is being gobbled up by board shenanigans throughout the quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Huge distraction. He gets a call from the chairman. Chairman says, this is going terrible. You got 6 months to turn this around or you're all gone. And he calls me. He goes, I literally don't know what to do. It's not us. It's them. Can AI help? That was the right question. So I pulled the exec team together on Zoom, pulled up literally ChatGPT, context, role, interview, task. Context, I'm the CEO of this company. We do X, Y, and Z. We have a hostile board. Every quarter is an absolute bloodbath. Half of my executive team's time is gobbled up with board shenanigans. I just got a call from the chairman of the board telling me that if we don't turn this around in 6 months, we're all fired. We're trying to get toward an exit in the next 24 months, but I'm wondering if we're going to even be here in 6. Your role is to act as an HR professional with deep expertise in writing personality profiles. Interview me. Ask as many questions as you want until you can understand one board member named Susan on a deep level so that you can then accomplish the task of generating a personality profile for her. So it literally interviewed the exec team about Susan, spat out a personality profile on Susan, and then as the thought leader, they applied their human judgment and made some tweaks. They repeated that for every single director. This is where things get fun. We created an AI board. With a few clicks, we created a custom GPT, fed it the personality profiles of every director and said, your job is to be our AI board. We're going to give you our deck before the meeting. Your job is to simulate how you think the real board will react to every slide and summarize the landmines that are going to blow up in our face that are causing all the bloodshed. To test it, we gave it a deck from the past. Literally pulled a 60-plus page PowerPoint into ChatGPT and said, give us your feedback. Guess how long it took it to read over 60 slides as every single board member?
Instantly.
5 seconds. And it said, on slide 8, Susan's going to get distracted by the granularity of the details of the slide on slide 8. This is going to lead to a 30-minute detour. It's going to derail your whole agenda. Instead of all the details, say these 3 things. It's what she cares about most. And I look at the CEO and he goes, that's exactly what happened. Now, to make it better, this is where it gets interesting. We, with the board's permission, we started using an AI note taker in the real board meeting, meaning we have a transcript of what every director has said. We pulled it back into the AI board and had it compared what it simulated to reality and tweaked the personality profile so it could have simulated reality. It only took 2 board meetings for the board to call the CEO and say, these are the best meetings we've ever had and the best decks we've ever seen. What changed?
Wow.
Literally saved their jobs. Total investment of time to build it and train it under 3 hours.
All ChatGPT.
With ChatGPT.
Wow. What is the AI note-taking app you prefer or use?
Depends on the use case. I'll give you top 3.
Yeah.
Fathom,
Yeah.
We use Fathom because it integrates with HubSpot. So like my sales calls, my sales team,
Yeah.
it automatically transcribes it, puts it into a specific structure, and puts it in HubSpot.
Okay.
That's a game changer.
Right.
Read.ai,
Yeah.
phenomenal interface. And then Otter.ai is
Okay.
also really good. Those are three that we've used.
And that's just capturing anything that's transcribing anything verbal and then putting into relevant
Over
systems.
Zoom, or
Yeah.
it can be an app on your phone in person. Yeah.
Amazing. Hey, you brought up the board again, and that goes back to something you said earlier I wanted to ask you about.
Yeah.
You said you had a board of
For myself.
Steve Jobs, Warren
Yeah.
Buffett,
So
your future self.
It's
Tell me
lo-
about how you did that.
it's lonely at the top. And the last decade of my life, I've been the coach to executive teams. And I've always had a coach. But in this season of my life, I don't have one. And I'm literally blazing an entire new category of leadership, which is AI-driven leadership. There's no roadmap for this. And so I wanted to surround myself with the best thinkers. And so I went to ChatGPT, and I told it what my 10-year vision for the company was, the strategy of the company, meaning the protective moat we want to build. I gave it our strategic plan for this year. I gave it my personality profiles that I have. I told it what I was consciously aware were my strengths and weaknesses. I then had it interview me to highlight other strengths and weaknesses I have that I was not conscious of. And based on that, I then said, if I were to acquire or assemble a real board, what are the strengths or skills I would want to have on my board? And it gave me a list. I agreed with 80% of it. The 20% I discarded. And then I said, great, now research famous people that have exemplified these skills. And like one was vision and product design. It came back with Steve Jobs. So I created a personality profile for Steve Jobs, but I explicitly put limits that he's not allowed to talk to me about being a husband, a father, or a leader. I'm 100% serious. Warren Buffett, it made a recommendation for long-term planning and risk mitigation. Jeff Bezos for operational scalability. Tony Hsieh for customer experience. And then I realized my future self. Like I have this vision of who I want to become over the next 30 years. And I have created a personality profile of who I want to become.
Yeah.
So that version of me can talk to me now. And this is all in a custom GPT. So when I'm driving, I will bring it my toughest problems or the things that I need help thinking through, and I'll have it interview me, and it'll help me see things I don't see. It'll give me non-obvious strategies. It'll bulletproof my strategic plan. It'll tell me the things I'm not thinking about as a leader. What was really crazy, I did this in front of a group of CEOs. I just said, tell me the things I may not know about my business that you know about my business that I should know about my business. What it came back with was remarkable. And that led to an hour-long back and forth conversation about challenging that and driving that to fruition that led to an email that went to my entire executive team that shaped some key strategic moves of our company.
Do you know what those things were, or can you recall them? Or can you share them?
Yeah. It called out that I may not consciously be aware that the collective is my unicorn.
The collective is your unicorn.
That executive network, the AI-driven Leadership Collective,
right.
is the unicorn business.
Got it.
It said this is a multi-billion-dollar business. What's crazy about that is that 2 weeks before we had our first offsite for the collective, I had 55 execs in the room, one of which was the chairman of Domino's Pizza for China. He pulled me aside and said, this is a multi-billion-dollar company, and here's why. And we had dinner, and he walked me through the whole thing. I have never told it to AI. I have never given it that feedback, so it doesn't have stored memory on that, but it spotted it. And then I asked it to make the argument for why, and it called out from the network effects to centralization of data to layering AI on top through a community network. It was like, this is a multi-billion-dollar valuation play. And then I had it bulletproof it. I had to say, now I want you to act as devil's advocate and ask me questions and challenge every single assumption here to bulletproof this thing. Now, based on that, what adjustments would I have to make to our business model to make this really defensible and scalable? And by the way, all this conversation was while I was driving in the car.
So you're just verbally prompting it and it's giving you
just threw it into voice mode.
talking back to you.
Have you done voice mode?
I have, yeah.
Yeah.
And wow, so interesting.
It's like, I mean, literally, like we can do it right now. Here.
Yeah, I've never used it while driving.
So I mean, I'm literally just clicking the black voice note button. All right, so I want to engage the AI board. I specifically want to talk to Jeff Bezos because I'm dealing with operational scalability issues around the collective right now. So Jeff, I want you to interview me, ask me one question at a time, up to 5 questions to gain deeper context about the situations. For some additional context, we realized that the collective, we're going to break the model this year. We're just scaling too fast. And I need us to be able to scale to 10,000 people within the next 10 years. It'll probably be within 5. I need you to help me identify the top 3 areas of insufficiency that we would have to, that would cause the majority of the breakage in our scalability, and what we can do in the next 30 days to plug it.
Understood, Jeff. Let's get started. What's the biggest challenge you're currently facing with scaling the collective?
So it's just a conversation back and forth.
Okay, let's go back to these personality profiles. So you built
It's wild, man.
these individual, the Bezos, the Steve Jobs, your future self. Like, can you just tell me how do you do that? I mean, I get Bezos and Jobs, but how do you build your future self? What is that? Who is that even made of?
I did it again yesterday. So I've got a prompt that let me go real, like, you know nothing. You're not me. Go to ChatGPT or whatever one and say, hey, context, role, interview, task. Context, I want to create a personality profile about my future self. My goal is to be able to have a persona that I could feed to a custom GPT so that I could have conversations with a persona that would mimic who I think I'll become over the next 30 years.
Mm-hmm. Would you rather have 1 Bitcoin today or 2 Bitcoin a few years from now? Bitcoin mining is a tried and true strategy for accumulating Bitcoin. Over a 2 to 4 year time frame, successful miners have consistently accumulated more Bitcoin than they otherwise would with a traditional dollar cost average strategy. Blockware's mining as a service enables you to start mining Bitcoin from your laptop. Blockware handles everything from securing the miners to sourcing low-cost power to configuring the mining pool. They do it all. Plus, with Blockware's one-of-a-kind mining marketplace, you can buy and sell live Bitcoin miners with just a few strokes of the keyboard. In this marketplace, buyers get to purchase live machines at vetted facilities, enabling them to mine with 0 lead time. And sellers get the opportunity to liquidate their machines and hosting contracts at will. This means you can mine Bitcoin with 0 long-term commitment and high liquidity on your mining rigs. Blockware will even cover your miner's energy bill for the first week of each of your mining rigs when you sign up at mining.blockwaresolutions.com/breedlove. Again, that's 1 free week of Bitcoin mining at mining.blockwaresolutions.com/breedlove. Bitcoin custody is evolving. Both self-custody and single third-party custody come with significant risk and trade-offs. OnRamp is pioneering a new standard, multi-institution custody, which eliminates single points of failure, adding fault tolerance and redundancy to your setup. OnRamp secures your Bitcoin in a segregated cold storage multi-key vault guarded by 3 independent institutional-grade custodians, none of which have unilateral control over your keys. Your funds are fully auditable on-chain, cannot be rehypothecated, and can only move or be withdrawn at your explicit direction. Multi-institution custody removes the technical, mental, and physical burdens of private key management, providing unparalleled peace of mind for you and your loved ones. Bitcoin is money, and as the price continues to appreciate, OnRamp helps you seamlessly tap into financial services like trading, inheritance, insurance, loans, IRAs, and more, all without compromising on security or accessibility. Schedule a consultation with the OnRamp team to learn more at onrampbitcoin.com/breedlove. Again, that's onrampbitcoin.com/breedlove. So these personality profiles that you're creating with the LLM, in the LLM, with the LLM, both, I guess. I think I understand how you would do a historical figure like Bezos or Jobs, but how are you creating yourself 30 years in the future?
Sure. So I'll give you the super simple version, and literally context, role, interview, task. Context, I want to create a personality profile that I could train a custom GPT on so it can act as my future self, so I can have my future self as a thought partner. Your role is to act as an expert prompt engineer. Interview me, ask me one question at a time, up to 7 questions. I'm going to give it more questions. So you can gain deeper context on who I imagine my future self to be. And then your task is to create the personality profile that I could give to a custom GPT. That would do it.
Okay. And then, so it does that.
It'll spit it out.
And how do you capture that personality and build a board with it?
When it gives you a result, which I just did this again yesterday just to enhance it, and I read it and I was like, okay, now I had something to react to. Here are some things that are missing. Or here are some things that you're kind of alluding to, but they're not explicit, that need to be called out explicitly. And I'm literally having this conversation, regenerate it based on that. Once I got it to the point that I wanted it, I literally copied all of it, pasted it into, in this case, a Google Doc, because I use the Google Suite, and I converted that to a PDF.
Okay.
And I can pull that PDF into a custom GPT and say, you are to act as my future self. Here's a personality profile for you to act on.
Okay, so each PDF then that you extract in that way becomes an individual personality profile, and then you take 7 to whatever number of those PDFs.
Pull it in.
And then you say create a board out of these 7 people?
Yes.
Is that also a custom GPT?
All that's a custom GPT.
Okay, and then once you've done that, then you just have access to that custom GPT called
now, the only thing we
imaginary
haven't
board.
done is like written the custom instructions for how you want the GPT to behave.
Yeah.
But so you could literally just in ChatGPT say, I need to create custom instructions for this GPT. Interview me.
Yeah.
You're an expert in creating them. Interview me.
Yeah.
Ask me one question at a time. Ask as many questions as you want to figure out what I need this thing to do. And then your task is to write the custom instructions, and it will spit it out. And you
Gotcha.
literally copy and paste those into the section of the GPT that asks for the instructions.
Right. So before taking that step, the custom GPT just becomes the actual imaginary board, virtual board, whatever you want to call it.
I could show you.
And so then you just pose questions to that custom GPT as if you're posing questions to a virtual board.
AI Advisory Collective. That's
Yeah.
my AI board.
Got it.
It's right there. Just click it.
And so you just query that like you would query a normal LLM.
Bingo.
Okay. Wow. Any other crazy far out use cases or imaginary methods of using LLMs that most people haven't tapped into?
Here's the thing. We haven't tapped into 99.999% of it
Yeah.
because it's so new. It's so new. But I think that there is stuff you face on a daily basis that requires you to think. Anytime you have to think and it matters, don't do it alone.
Right.
My biggest thing is start using AI as your thought partner. You can use it as a Google. You can ask it questions. You can use it like an assistant to help you write a better email. That will bring value.
Yeah.
But it pales in comparison to the stuff that I am talking about.
And can you delineate between the two? Like, because when you're Googling something, I mean, that's a pseudo thought partner perhaps, or you're saying you could use it as Google, but use it as a thought partner. So
Well, it's like when the camera glitched here and we're like, well, how do you get this thing to reset? Like, okay, fine. Versus, what's a recent use case? Another one.
It's more this multi-layered approach. It's like when you go through the CRIT framework, the layers of questioning and learning and context addition, that's the thought
quality, when you follow that context role interview task framework, the quality of information that comes out of your head and gets put into the large language model allows the large language model to deliver a vastly superior output for you that's actually useful. I'll give you another good one. Unicorn company, venture backed, missed their number last year. The board was furious. And the CEO gets a mandate. You got to grow top line revenue 30% this year or you guys are gone. They did 150 million last year. That's a big number to grow, 30%. And we got together and the CEO goes, guys, I get it. It's crazy, but our goal is 30%. And I said, sorry, wrong. And he said, what do you mean? The board said 30%. I said, no. The result you need to deliver is 30%. How often do plans go according to plan? Never. So if you create a plan for 30%, you just create a plan to fail. What would the plan have to be so that when things go wrong, we still hit 30%? And he goes, it'd have to be like 50% growth. And literally one of the execs in the room goes, that would be impossible. He's asking the wrong question. It would be impossible unless what? And he goes, well, we'd have to drive $20 million in net new revenue from products that don't even exist yet. And I just smiled and grabbed a whiteboard marker and wrote it on the board. And I said, what else would be? It would be impossible unless what else happened? And literally we get these 5 things on the board and we're looking at them and 3 of them were real. Like, no, we really would have to do that. We would have to, that actually needs to be on our plan this year. We started with the 20 million. They get their sticky notes out. They got their Sharpies out. They're going all over the room, putting up ideas on how they could come up with 20 million from stuff that doesn't even exist yet. It would be recognized in the next 12 months. When we added it all up, best case scenario, 12 million, which really means 4 to 6 because plans don't go according to plan. And the CEO says, I think we need to lower the goal. And I said, hold on. You're giving up based on your human processing power. Let's engage AI as a thought partner. Pulled up ChatGPT, context, role, interview, task. I pulled in the strategic plan that we had created so far, gave the feedback on the company, the product suite, the competitive positioning, its competition, what the customer pain points were that it was solving, why they were different. Your role is to act as a aggressive, growth-minded board member with deep expertise in our space. Interview me, ask 1 question at a time, up to 5 questions to gain deeper context. Your task is to generate 10 non-obvious product combinations or solutions we could launch that would conservatively drive 20 million in recognized revenue within the next 12 months. The answers it gave blew their mind, not because they were so innovative, but because they were so obvious.
They were obvious when you're asking for non-obvious.
It's tough to read the label when you're inside the box.
Yeah.
They were so in the box that they couldn't see what they couldn't see. But AI was able to go, well, hey, you have this offering and you have this offering, but if we just bundled it, you could actually charge even more and you would have a bigger total addressable market. It was stuff like that where it's like, you don't even need to create anything new. You just need to change the offering on your website. And that could drive a $5 million impact.
Wow.
So this is, most people listening to this have never thought this way because they haven't thought this way.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is don't focus on the little things that don't matter. Focus on the 20% things that matter most in your life. Have a sticky note on your desk that says, how can AI help me do this? And have another sticky note that says context, role, interview, task. And once a day, every day, for the next 30 days, write a prompt. Don't worry about if it works or not. It's not about you getting use cases like mine. It's about you learning how to write the prompts, how to identify a strategic use case, how to stay in the driver's seat as the thought leader. And you will start to figure out what's your 20% use case. All the prompts you're hearing from me are a reflection of who I am. I'm a very strategic person, which is why you're hearing this level of thinking.
Fantastic. So are there any other frameworks like the CRIT, C-R-I-T, right? CRIT framework. Are there other frameworks that people should be thinking of or that you've tried?
No. I mean, are there? Yes.
Right.
But this is
should
where
we ask ChatGPT if there's other framerworks?
This is where we come back.
Did you come up with that framework by asking ChatGPT?
No, I figured that one out just by me actually becoming an AI-driven leader and just doing this every day. I started to realize that I was always, there are all these different ingredients. It's actually page 73 in the book. I got this image of ingredients like cooking. Like there's give structure, there's give limits, there's all these other things that you can do. But I realized that the 20% ingredients I was using 80% of the time in a recipe was context, role, interview, task,
Ingredients.
ingredients. Yeah, it's just like cooking. You don't pull everything out of your fridge
Yeah.
when you make a recipe, and you don't use the same amount
Right.
of every ingredient. And the better the quality, the better the taste.
Got it.
Same thing with AI.
So you just doing the reps, and then you discovered this framework, and it's been
The
very
reason
useful.
I'm able to talk the way I talk is because I actually live this.
Yeah. Got it. Okay, let's talk about winners and losers. I mean, we already
Yeah.
touched on this. Is like every major disruptive technology destroys some businesses,
Yes.
right? And then it liberates a lot of productivity, and then people go and create new businesses with their newfound freedom. And that's sort of that's the Schumpeterian creative destruction that capitalism is based on. Who are the winners and the losers in the wake of generative AI?
The ones that ask the right questions.
But are there industries specifically that are going away? I mean, it's harder to say which new industries it's going to enable, but which ones?
We'll go there second.
Okay.
Here's what I mean by that. I asked, what if your biggest threat was not the competition, but it was the way you were thinking? I believe your ability to think strategically is the difference between growing your business or literally going out of business. I had a question that was written in Sharpie on my whiteboard when I was building the one thing. And it was a question I got from Gary Keller. What's the business that'll put us out of business? How can I build it first? Whatever industry you're in, from healthcare, education, finance, accounting, consulting, sales, marketing, every single one of them is going to be touched by AI. The problem is most leaders are asking the wrong questions. They're asking, well, how is it going to impact jobs? Or what's this going to do to our revenue? Or how do we protect what our current business model is? They're all the wrong questions. Versus asking, what's the business that'll put us out of business? How can we be the ones to build it first? That's how you win. And that requires you to let go of the way things used to be and reimagine who you can become. So you give me any industry, we can start to think through where might this technology make certain skills and processes less valuable or obsolete, and where might it make enhance certain skills and processes? Where does it allow you to deliver value that you couldn't deliver before? Every industry has the exact same opportunity. It's the leaders that ask the questions are the ones that will win.
So let's go with, I guess this is an obvious example. Like a lot of people have already been saying that ChatGPT puts Google out of business. All right, so LLM puts search engine out of business. Yeah. You're saying that Google should then go and say, hey, what's the business that's going to put me out of business?
If Google
to an
had,
LLM,
if
and the
Google
LLM
had
would
asked
answer
that
LLM.
question, they would have created Perplexity first. And they've already started to go this direction where you do a Google search now and you see a Gemini answer up top where it gives you the answer, and then it's giving all the links below. But that's still them clinging to the way things used to be because all their money comes from ad spend.
Yeah.
If you go to an imaginary world where they were not shackled to ad spend, would they have made a change faster? I think so. I think so. But this is part of the innovator's dilemma where you get to such a size and mass that in order to innovate requires you to kill the previous business to reimagine the next one. Now, here's the thing. Google's been slow. I'm not counting them out. I'm not counting them out. I worked closely with them when I was with Jindal Steel because when they put me in charge of AI, I had no idea what I was doing. Yet I had to figure out how to drive this through 100,000 people. And then I remember from Gary Keller, anytime you're hitting a ceiling, you're missing a person. I called Google. I partnered with them. I started living in their headquarters in Delhi. They taught me so much of what I know about AI. They will not lose this game. Gemini may not have the market share that ChatGPT has yet. I'm not counting them out, though.
Okay, so what search engines, though, are they dead?
The way they used to be, where you ask a question and you get 10 links, most of which are ads and not an answer, yes.
Yeah. So search engines become LLMs?
Yes.
Okay.
LLMs, I mean, ChatGPT has launched it.
Yeah.
Gemini, Google's already going that direction. You ask a question, you want an answer. You don't want a bunch of links where you have to then go hunt for an answer.
Sure. What other, so that one's, again, I think fairly non-controversial.
I think healthcare is going to be massively disrupted, and I think it's going to be awesome.
Okay.
Because I spent a lot of time in the healthcare space when I was in medical sales. I watched these doctors and nurses act like administrative people. Most of their time charting, doing documents versus actually practicing patient care. And so when I think about what does it look like to harness the data that you can have on people, like I'm wearing an Aura ring right now, the data that this thing has on me in the context of every Aura ring member in the world to be able to predict, hey, you're having this type of a pattern where you're not getting enough restorative sleep, plus the confluence of these other data points, you are on track to have a heart attack in the next 3 years, let's say. Here's the things that you could do based on the diet, based on your grocery bills and all this. Like the ability to pull all this data together to actually practice preventative medicine. Oh my gosh, that's going to be huge. Education.
Yeah.
I mean, in 1900, John D. Rockefeller is running Standard Oil. He sees a huge problem because there's factories booming everywhere, but they didn't have enough kids coming out of school with the skills required to succeed in an industrial world. So in 1902, he starts the General Education Board, seeds it with $1 million, which is $37 million today, with one goal: start to reshape the public education system so kids would learn the skills that would be valuable in an industrial world. Over the next 20 years, he gave over $100 million and completely reshaped the curriculum of public education. Why does that matter now? It's still our education system. Show up to school on time, take direction from a teacher, memorize something so you can repeat it with minimal error with maximum efficiency so you can get a good grade. Get a good job, show up to work on time, take direction from a boss, do something repetitive with minimal error with maximum efficiency so you can get promoted. We were taught to act like machines. And we teach to the test. Doesn't matter where you are. If the curriculum says we're moving on to the next subject, if you haven't established the foundation, sorry, we're moving on. Now look at a world of AI that can actually understand how much you understand about a subject. And regardless of what the curriculum says we should be talking about, it understands what you need to do next and is able to help guide you to take that next step in a modality that works for you, whether it's visual, auditory, kinesthetic. Education is going to be massively disrupted.
That's interesting because I have heard in moving from the industrial age into the digital age, we would move from an age of mass manufacturing to an age of mass customization. That sounds like it resonates with the educational paradigm.
100%. It's a personalized approach to learning.
Going back to the healthcare example, are you then saying that companies like Aura will use an LLM to synthesize all of their consumer data to provide these insights?
I actually have a call with their CEO coming up. I want to ask questions about this. I know Tom did put a press release out on LinkedIn about, it was actually a phenomenal demonstration of leadership in terms of saying Aura is using AI and we are using this to enhance our people and keep our people at the center. I think he nailed it. There are a lot of companies who are saying we're going to use this to replace people or drive costs down. I think they're viewing it wrong. I think he's nailing it. I'm very curious to hear what their roadmap looks like because I think they could do a lot of good in the world.
Would it be too much to say that your position is that companies that do not adopt this are inevitably going to be disrupted by companies that do? So if there were an Aura Ring that doesn't use an LLM, so he's just against it, then some Aura Ring competitor that does use it would outcompete them.
Here's what I look to from the past. That would be like saying if you refuse to use the internet, can you win?
Right.
You refuse to use word processors like Microsoft
Sure.
Word, that you will win.
The economic advantage is just so high, you can't compete.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. One of my highest health priorities is keeping my brain in top shape. To take care of my brain power, I do many things, such as striving to read, write, exercise, and meditate daily. One of the latest tools in my brain power toolkit is MindLab Pro. MindLab Pro is a nootropic supplement that is scientifically proven to enhance your brain power. When I take MindLab Pro, my mind feels like it has a better grip on the world, my thinking is more lucid, and the articulation of my speech is radically improved. MindLab Pro has been tested in rigorous, double-blind, placebo-controlled human trials and has been proven to enhance brain power for users in every age group. MindLab Pro is an advanced formulation of 11 nootropic ingredients and is backed by research from over 1,400 human trials conducted over the past 32 years. So if you're looking to enhance your brain power, MindLab Pro is an excellent solution. Go to mindlabpro.com/breedlove to start enhancing your brain power today. Again, that's mindlabpro.com/breedlove. Knowing when to buy Bitcoin can feel complicated, and knowing how much to buy can be overwhelming, and getting started can be a headache, but it doesn't have to be. That's exactly why I recommend Coinbits, because it solves these major blockers and it's the easiest way to buy Bitcoin. With Coinbits' Round Ups feature, you can automatically convert your spare change into Bitcoin while you shop. For example, when you buy a coffee for $3.50, the extra 50 cents is rounded up and it goes straight into Bitcoin. Here's why that's a huge win for you, because you don't have to be a tech wizard or try to time the market just right with Bitcoin. With Coinbits Roundups, you simply set it, shop, and stack sats. And you can set this up in under 2 minutes. Just visit the website, connect your card, and boom, you're buying a little Bitcoin every time you spend money. So stop wasting your time with complicated exchanges or confusing shitcoin apps. Coinbits simplifies your Bitcoin savings strategy. So go to coinbits.app/breedlove. Again, that's coinbits.app/breedlove. You've mentioned this before, but like you've studied a lot of these business leaders, the most successful in the world. You also said that the way to encode this into your cultural DNA as a leader is to just do it, right?
Yes.
To be hands-on, to embody what you wish your team to also embody, right? Set the example, lead by example. What are they doing besides just using these tools? Like what else are they doing to be on the forefront of this revolution?
They're not. That's the problem.
Well, I'm asking about the ones that you've studied that are these AI. I mean, I assume there are some AI-driven leaders in the world, right?
There are.
That's what I'm asking about.
Got
What
it.
are they doing to define themselves as AI-driven leaders other than just using AI?
Sure. These people, they're hungry to grow. They are lifelong learners.
Mm-hmm.
They're humble. And that the more that they learn, the less they realize that they know.
Yeah.
They're innovative in that they see this as an opportunity, and they're collaborative. They don't want to do it alone because
Okay.
they realize it's moving too damn fast, and none of their jobs is to be the chief AI officer or the AI expert of the company.
Right.
But they do realize they cannot delegate vision, strategy, or leadership,
Yeah.
and they have to actually lead from the front.
Yeah.
They have started using the technology themselves,
Okay.
and they're not using it to write better emails. They're using it in the 20% areas that drive 80% of the results.
Yeah.
Just so that they can experience the technology. But what happens is they have what I call in the book a light bulb moment.
Mm-hmm.
It's that moment AI turns a relatable moment into a remarkable experience.
Mm-hmm.
And they go, whoa, what else is possible? And then they fall off the cliff. They have this reality check because it's AI's not working, but they realize it's their communication.
Mm-hmm.
Just like in a marriage. If you don't communicate effectively with your wife, you have a very poor relationship.
Oh yeah.
Once they learn how to communicate, which that's those ingredients on page 73, when they're using it, it starts to work. And they go from starting to build momentum to accelerating progress to this point where they're AI driven. They're just expanding what's possible. They are truly superhuman. When that happens, they can't help but want to share it with everyone. But this is where I come in and go, don't go share it with everyone. I think running and giving this training everybody in your company right off the bat, I think is a mistake because it's like an adoption curve. You have some that are innovators and early adopters that will grab onto this when it's messy. They'll fail. They'll keep moving forward. But you got a cohort in your team that's very risk averse. The
laggards.
The laggards, the late majority. You give this to them too early before you've worked things out, they will literally kill the program. And so this is where it's about strategic, kind of like dominoes. Like step one is gain foundational competence yourself. Step two is expand to early adopters, work the kinks out. Step three is you strategically start to expand through about half the company. Step four is you optimize the existing state. Step five is you transform for the future state. We did the research. These are the 5 levels of maturity within a company.
What about governments? Like we've talked almost exclusively about private enterprise. What does this do to the public sphere?
I might get flack for this. Our government is so inefficient.
Well, yeah.
So inefficient. And by the way, this is not a political thing. Everybody knows our government is inefficient. We have massively talented people who work in the government, and we have some people that may not have the same level of talent. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about straight up efficiency and bureaucracy. They're massively slow on this. And this comes from me actually talking to people off the record in the government when I say, what are you doing with this? And they scoff and laugh about it. They're not even touching it yet for the most part. They're so attached to the way things used to be versus reimagining who they can become. And so this is where if you look at what's happening with Elon coming in with Doge, put your feelings about him aside or put your feelings about how he's doing what he's doing. I'm not going to express my feelings on those. He's going in and he's changing things. The thing I'll say is look at what he's done in the past. He's always made things more efficient when people said it was impossible. I'm going to send a rocket to space and bring it back. Impossible. Even better, I'm going to catch it with chopsticks. You're crazy. Until he does it. Do I agree with how he's going about what he's doing? No. But is there an opportunity to make things more efficient? Yes, there is.
And if anything, this tool definitely makes things more efficient. What about government's involvement with artificial intelligence? Like I think the
regulation side?
Is it Stargate, Project Stargate, where the U.S. government was going to invest $500 billion in AI?
In data centers. I think AI's out of the train has left the station.
Okay.
So I think making the investments in the energy development, in the data centers, in universities, and doing the things so that we can be a leader, I think is a really, really good move. The regulation side is a different story. Like if you bring too much regulation, look at what has happened within Europe. Europe put a ton of regulations. They're massively behind when it comes to the innovation. But then there's the human side of if you don't regulate, do you really trust these tech companies to have humanity's best interest at heart? History would say we should not. So I think there's the right blend to strike there.
Well, I mean, have you looked into this Project Stargate? They're going to apparently allocate $500 billion. I don't know what that means.
It's all about it. I know somebody who's actually building out one of the data centers. The amount of capital required to create the data centers that can do this compute that's required is massive. AI doesn't work without it.
Sure.
So that I think is a good thing.
But is it central government trying to control their own instance of AI?
No.
Or what's the purpose of
Not my understanding. It's that they were going to allocate funding. By the way, they don't even have all that money yet. But so that we can start, like there's a massive data center that's getting built just east of Austin, Texas for OpenAI.
Okay.
So you got to acquire the land. You got to build the buildings. You got to acquire all the equipment. You got to actually run it to be able to create this level of power and compute to run these large language models.
Yeah, and then so what if you have to speculate, it's all private industry up until this point, more or less.
If you look at where's the big opportunity for money moving forward, data centers is a big one, but that game, I mean, you've already got BlackRock and big companies raising tons of money for this. That's not a game that the little guys can compete and win. And then there's the energy side. The energy requirements to run AI is a real concern. The amount of water that gets used for every prompt is serious, just to cool these data centers. So there's going to be a huge need for somebody to crack the code when it comes to renewable energy sources to power all this.
Got it. But if you had to speculate on the implications of the public sector becoming more involved in generative AI, what are those implications?
I'm not the expert on that one.
You don't know? Okay.
I don't know.
All right. If someone is trying to, and this is probably a very difficult question, but if someone's trying to future-proof themselves today, they're trying to say, hey, I'm an 18-year-old college student. What am I supposed to study and learn today so that I'm future-proof for the next 30 plus years?
I'm going to give you the same advice I was given. What are the skills you can master that are so valuable, they'll serve you no matter where you go?
Yeah, what are those?
If I look back to what makes us human, the ability to think strategically, to solve problems, to communicate, to collaborate, to create.
Those are so broad, though. Like specifically, so it's like being really good with English.
Being an effective communicator.
Yeah.
Actually having high emotional intelligence and understanding that the quality of your communication is the way it's received, not your intention. To be able to read a person and effectively communicate an idea to influence them to take an action in their best interest. That's a superpower. That's not going away. The ability to solve problems, you're not just going to do it with your human processing power, you're also going to do it with AI processing power. The ability to connect with other people or to connect people to ideas, to opportunities, and how do you use AI to enhance that versus replace that? Like these are things that will matter. Do I think that your ability to write a first draft is going to be as valuable of a skill? I don't. Do I think your ability to do the math is as important? I don't. Do I think, there's so many different skills.
Software engineering too?
Software engineering we will still have software engineers, but it's less about you writing the initial code and more about being able to write the prompt to get to the code, to then be able to wave the baton to get another AI agent or persona to review the code so that you as the human can oversee the code. Like that's where you get so much more done. The output goes through the roof, as does the quality.
So the 18-year-old kid, is he studying like linguistics, philosophy, maybe mathematics, engineering?
So this is where I think this and business, there's alignment. I read a study from Harvard that AI is not your source of sustainable competitive advantage.
Okay.
And in it, the argument was made that saying that AI is going to be your competitive advantage is like saying the internet is our competitive advantage or Microsoft Excel is our competitive advantage.
Right.
It's going to be a source of competitive parity.
Right.
Where does your source of sustainable advantage come from? It comes from the internal capabilities that are valuable, rare, or costly to imitate. Within a company, then you ask the question, does AI enhance this or does it undermine it? If it undermines it, you don't touch AI. But if it can enhance it, that's where you can marry AI with something that makes you to create a sustainable advantage. The same thing applies to an individual. Everything you are hearing from me today is AI enhancing what makes Geoff Woods, Geoff Woods. I am a very strategic thinker. I think very differently than most people in the world, which is why these use cases are so different. I'm also very articulate as a speaker. My ability to tell stories or to make something complex seem simple, this is a superpower of mine. I am using AI to enhance my strengths. They will not replace my strengths. And that's where I'm focusing, and that's where my personal competitive advantage is. So for a person who's 18 or in college or you're in the middle of your career, this is actually a journey of self-awareness and understanding who are you? You are you, not what you do, which most people attach their identities to their jobs. You are not a product manager. You are not a marketing expert. You are not a salesperson. You are you. You happen to currently apply certain skills and follow certain processes in the context of a job. But if you actually look inward at what are your unique strengths that light you up, that when you flex them, you bring the most value. And if you really doubled down on those and then started asking, can I use AI to make these better, or does that AI actually make them worse? If it makes them worse, don't touch AI for those things. If it makes it better, use it all day long. That's your advantage.
So then would you be, again, let's focus on giving advice to this 18-year-old that's looking for the future path here. Would you then be encouraging them to literally just try to find the things that they are most interested in and lean into those things and then see where AI can augment
I'll tell you what I'm doing with my kids.
their skills?
I'll tell you what I'm doing. No greater testament than what I'm doing with my actual
And
kids.
how old are they?
11, 9, and 3. The
Okay.
3-year-old, she's just cute. We're not having this conversation yet. The 11 and 9-year-olds, we are.
Yeah.
My 11 and 9-year-olds are different people. They have different strengths. I am doubling down with each of them on what their strengths are. Like, for AI aside, this is not about AI. This is about maximizing them as humans. So for Daphne, she is so driven. She's also massively creative. She's dyslexic and ADHD. She sees the world. It's her superpower. She sees the world through a whole new lens. Like, I'm constantly calling her up in terms of how she sees the world differently. Like, I will always say to her, she'll say something that's different, and I'll go, I love how you see the world. That is so different. Right there, you're the unicorn when you're surrounded by a bunch of horses. So I'm calling these parts out of her to solidify this in her identity. I love your drive. I love how persistent you are. Like, you will persist until you succeed. With that, the double-edged sword is you have to know when it undermines the relationship. So like, these are the real conversations that I have with her. This morning, my son, my 9-year-old, this morning, I was meditating in the sauna this morning, and I was reflecting back on the child version of me that was bullied really significantly, that grew up hating himself, that because the world said I didn't matter. That version is still inside. That version is still hurting. That version I'm still working to heal. I thought about my 9-year-old son this morning while I was meditating and realized he is the highest version of my childhood self because he is confident and he goes through the world with a strong back but an open heart.
It's great.
His ability to stand and hold space for people when they're emotional and to be grounded and present with them and to hold that space, but then to empathize with them and to make them feel loved and seen is a superpower. And I literally got down on his level this morning, put my hand on his heart and said, I want you to know I thought about you this morning because I realized, like, the version I see of you, like, your ability to hold space for other people's emotions, to have this strong back and composure, but this open heart, like, you inspire me there. I literally said that to him this morning. So like, I'm having these conversations with my kids. That's step one. Step two is then, how might AI help them in those areas? And can we find use cases to enhance them in those areas?
And how do you do that? Or are you doing that with them already?
So with my daughter, she's very entrepreneurial and creative. She wanted to come up with a business idea. I said, great, this is an idea. Let's find the best idea.
Yeah.
We opened up ChatGPT, context, role, interview, task. I'm writing as my daughter, Daphne, who's 11. She has this idea to sell rainbow loom bracelets at school. She wants to do it because she's very creative and she wants to make money. Your role is to act as a business idea generator, who's great at coming up with ideas that kids can put into practice. Interview us, ask one question at a time, up to 5 questions. Your task is then to generate 10 alternative business models or ideas that she might like even more for her to consider. It's like just showing her that you had an idea. Now let me show you how to use AI to enhance that. For Dean, it might be around, like, this was an actual one, around he was emotional about something. And so I engaged AI as a thought partner, showed him how to write a prompt to engage AI as a thought partner so it could interview him to help him process his feelings and identify the best steps that he could take moving forward.
Wow. It's incredible. Okay, I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
Very useful to hear what you're doing with your actual children. That's obviously very high signal information.
Yeah.
Let's go back to that hypothetical 18-year-old.
Yeah.
But let's say he's no longer looking for, future proofing or finding his path forward in, how to adapt AI to himself or his skills to the future. But instead, let's say he already has a really good business idea, let's say it's a very disruptive social media company, something like that. And he's just got the idea. And he comes to you as a client and he says, hey, I have this good idea. I want to take this and make it a reality. Sure. How can I use AI to do that?
I would ask, what's the biggest problem you're facing that if we could solve it would make the biggest impact for you? So role play with me. What might that be?
Biggest problem. I think one of the most pressing problems in social media, in my perspective, there's that old saying that if the product is free, then you're the product. Well, social media users are not the actual users. They are the product, right? Advertisers are the ones buying the user's attention.
Correct.
So advertisers are the customer, whereas the users are the product. That seems like a kind of a perverse business model. So something that fixes that. I don't know what that is exactly.
So, and this is where anything you need to do, literally anything, ask, how can AI help me do this? It might be a good use case. It might be a waste of time. But until you try, you will lack the judgment on, is it actually a good investment of time or not?
Yeah.
So if I'm talking to the 18-year-old, he says, I've got this idea. I think it's super innovative for a business. I want AI to help me. First thing I'm going to do, just as me, I want to bulletproof it. I want to challenge my biases and assumptions. Like the subtitle is how to make faster, smarter decisions. A lot of that is challenging your biases and assumptions that lead you in the wrong direction. So I would have him go to AI, context, role, interview, task. You're starting to realize that this crit framework, really does apply almost all the time.
Yeah.
You don't have to use every single ingredient there, but as a base 20%, it is a 20% framework you could use 80% of the time.
Yeah.
Take it to the bank. Context, role, interview, task. Context, I'm an 18-year-old. I have this innovative idea around social media. But when I look at most social media companies today, the users aren't actually the clients, they're the products because all their data is being sold to advertisers. Advertisers are the real clients. I don't like that business model. And I think it's given all the wrong incentives. I think it's actually been, well, it might be a net positive for humanity. The downsides of it are still pretty high. I would love to come up with something different that I think would be an absolute win for humanity and for the bottom line. That's context. Roll. Oh, and by the way, here's my strategic plan of what I see as the business.
That's all context.
That's all context.
Okay.
Roll.
So is it, yeah, okay.
I want you to act as a board member with deep expertise in social media, but scaling companies that do good in the world.
Yeah.
Interview me. Ask me one question at a time, up to 5 questions to really challenge my thinking around this business model and to also just understand what is it that I'm really trying to accomplish here.
Yeah.
Then your task is to tell me what you like about my plan, what you don't like about my plan, and the top changes I'd have to make to my plan so that this could be a really viable business.
Right. So that's a refinement process.
Sure.
So say he runs that gauntlet, refines it, works out all the kinks.
Great. Now we need I like the model. Now I need to turn it into a strategic plan. You're an expert in strategic planning. Interview me, ask me one question at a time, and then your task is to create the strategic plan that I can execute for the next year.
So he gets this strategic plan, and then does he continually ask, like, okay, what's the next thing that I do? Like,
what's the next thing I need help with?
Money, I need to go hire.
What's the next thing I need help with? And then what's the next thing I need to do, and how can AI help me do that?
Is there any point at which you need to maybe test the biases and assumptions of the LLM?
Of course.
Or can you just always trust everything that's coming out of this?
Never.
Okay.
So this is where, again, you got to be the thought leader. You got to recognize that all of these large language models have been trained on information of the world. Not everything this is groundbreaking news, folks. Mm-hmm. Not everything you see on the internet is true.
Yeah, of course.
Yet these large language models have been trained on it. So they inherently have biases. You got to be aware of that. So when an answer comes to you, you don't treat it as gospel. You ask, do I believe that? Mm-hmm. Is that right? How do I know if it's true?
And
I will ask it.
Push back on the LLM even.
Totally.
Yeah.
I will even, when I'm asking it for research, I will ask it to cite its sources and not make anything up. I will explicitly say that.
And show its reasoning.
And then I will actually go and check the links.
Yeah.
And even when it gives me a link, it doesn't mean it was actually in the article.
Sure.
It makes things up all the time. But I'm in the driver's seat. I'm the thought leader. I'm always checking for that stuff. And at the end of the day, it's just like when you work with a team, your team can bring you a product or work, but at the end of the day, as the boss, you submit it, it's your reputation. Mm-hmm. The accountability lies with you. And so it's the same thing with AI.
Yeah.
And I want to be really clear. I'm saying you can try to use AI for anything. I am not saying you should use it for everything.
Right.
There's a difference between it could be used for anything versus you should use it for everything. Mm-hmm. There are so many things that I do not use AI for. I mean, literally today on the plane, before I went to the business model thing, I went old school pen and paper. Mm-hmm. I carry around a notebook, a special notebook that I use for journaling. I have a special pen for journaling. At home, I have a dedicated chair for thinking. I have a thinking time playlist. Like I have a full-blown thinking time ritual that is 100% analog, no tech.
Yeah.
Because in order for me to write the best prompts, I have to have a level of clarity myself first.
Right.
So I don't go to the LLM when I'm not clear on what I'm asking. I will still have strategic thinking time with good old pen and paper to get ideas. Then I go to AI and enhance it.
Got it. Okay, so I imagine that because again, LLMs are trained on all of this historical internet data.
Yes.
That they would be slightly less effective about these types of projects where you're talking about creating something brand new, like a brand new social media company. Mm-hmm. Is that safe to say? Whereas like you're talking about creating something that doesn't exist at all, the feedback you're going to get from the LLM might be a little more questionable than you asking about something historical.
I'm unsure. Here's the high level. Whatever you get, it's all a prediction of the next word.
Yeah.
The sky is blue. It barks like a dog.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually know these answers. It's just predicting based on a tremendous amount of data and patterns.
It's all statistical.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So
that's so
regardless of the situation, it's about you as thought leader applying your judgment and making a decision based on what you believe.
Do you think we operate on the same principles as these LLMs? Like, are we just statistically, as we have a conversation, am I just probabilistically pulling the next most likely word out of my ass and sending it over the wave to you?
You know, I don't actually know. I think there are differences, but this is where you're eclipsing my area of expertise. Like,
I don't think anyone knows, right?
Well, there are some people that are actually designing these things because, like, how the human brain works in terms of neural nets is how deep learning and generative AI was created. But there's a difference between how large language models are working versus, when we talk about AGI, artificial general intelligence, which doesn't exist yet. And that's just fancy for saying an AI model that could do anything we could do as humans. These generative AI models cannot do anything we can do as humans. It's just predicting the next word. AGI would be able to do anything we do as humans. What's the difference in terms of the programming between those two?
Don't know.
I don't know.
What are the threshold conditions between generative AI and AGI? Like, I know the Turing test used to be the threshold condition, but apparently that's no longer relevant. So what are there still threshold conditions? Do we even have, will we know when we have AGI?
Good question. Some people feel like I feel like I've heard people say that we have it based on what the definition of AGI is. I've heard some definitions of AGI where it's like, well, if that's the definition and that's true, then we have it now.
Yeah.
But then you have lots of people like Sam Altman saying, oh, I think we're going to have it in X number of years. And some saying, I don't know if we're ever going to have it. I don't know what the threshold is. And again, this is where I take a very specific point of view with AI. You're talking to somebody who is not a technical person, even though I might sound like it, I'm not. I'm a growth and strategy guy. I was somebody who sold copiers for Xerox until I got into medical sales, until I moved to Austin to start the company behind the one thing. That was my first time building a company, and I was taught to think and act like a CEO by my two partners. Through that, I learned how to ask the right questions. I mastered the art and science of that, which is how I ended up advising all these big companies. From there, I just became a chief growth officer of a steel company where I happened to see AI and got put in charge of it and figured out it's just like anything else. Find the problem preventing you from achieving your goals. Find the people who can solve the problem. Empower them. Get out of their way. Same thing with AI. And then I happened to go down this rabbit hole of what does it look like to be a leader to use AI to elevate your ability to think strategically, which is the AI-driven leader.
Yeah.
I'm not technical. Here's why I say this. I think most of the questions people are asking about AI, if you enjoy playing in the philosophical space, which you actually do, awesome. For the average person, that's not going to convert into action.
Yeah.
So most people's questions are distractions. It's like when people ask me, what's the best tool for this? I'm going, you're asking the wrong question because you have not mastered the ability to identify a high value use case, communicate effectively, and stay in the driver's seat as the thought leader. Wondering what's the latest plugin is literally a distraction. Go focus on what matters most. It is strategy first, technology second.
Yeah. Yeah, always has been, right? I mean, there is a reciprocal reshaping between the two, obviously, as your whole book, right? AI emerged. Well, all the strategy is now different. Strategies change. Maybe you select different tools for the job.
Yes.
So there's definitely feedback between the two. I'm still struck by the strangeness, though, that this is reducible to a mere statistical engine.
Crazy, right?
That is just statistically one word at a time pulling out the next thing. But then when it
That's literally it.
But in stringing it together, there's an incredible amount of meaning and utility for us.
Because our human brain can't comprehend having that much data with that powerful of a processing system.
Right.
It's superhuman. We can't comprehend it.
Right.
But if you literally could remember every single word of 200 million books, you would know the word of is often followed by these 5 words.
Right.
Maybe. And in this context, it narrows it down to this one.
Got it.
And if you have this supercomputer that can process all of that in a fraction of a second, that's how it can do it at that scale.
And this is why, is it context windows? Is that what they call them?
Context window is when you open a chat in ChatGPT. That total window, that length is called a context window. When these things came out, it was relatively small, meaning you could type, and if you typed in the same chat for long enough, it would forget what was at the top. So it would lose context. The length of these context windows are getting bigger and bigger and bigger to the point that it's just going to be infinite, where it could remember anything within a thread.
Oh, so this is not a component of the AI architecture itself. No. Okay, I thought context was, because it's also a very fascinating philosophical problem. Context is like, it's a very hard word to define, by the way. Like etymologically, it's related to the word weaving. So it's like weaving different things together. Con obviously means together. Text is word. So it's like weaving all the words together. But context is also not just textual, right? Context can be circumstantial. It could just be, time, place, attitude, mood, whatever. So context is a very fascinating thing. What I wanted to get to, though, is so the strangeness that strikes me is that it's just a statistical engine. Hopefully, more or less. Again, I'm not a technical guy either, but if I may reduce it to something so simple, yet it's capable of generating these profoundly meaningful things, sequences of data that change our action.
Yes.
My curiosity is like, what are the limitations of the complexity that it can handle or advise on?
Yeah.
Right. So the thing that came to mind is like the most complex situations we deal with are typically social situations, like cultural
they're great at them.
milieu and all, like,
They're great at them.
right. Even what the market is doing, right, is like interconnecting everyone's mind, and we figure out a price point, and that is the data point that everyone sort of agreed to implicitly through their actions in the marketplace. So like we have all these ways of compressing lots of psychological data that emerges from interconnected minds, but what are the limitations of an LLM? Like, what can they handle? Are there things they can't handle?
Yes.
Are there, and feel free to use social data as an example, or pull up your own example if you like, but what are the limitations of it in terms of complexity?
Well, number one, let's go limitations overall. Not all of these are actively plugged to the internet.
Mm-hmm.
So what is available on the internet as of this second that you're listening to this episode is not necessarily what's in these large language models.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are outdated over a year. That's step one. Step two, because it's just predicting the next word, it hallucinates. It makes things up. It wants to please you. So even if it has no fact, it will come up with an answer that will sound good. So you have to know.
Oh, it will bullshit you.
100%. It's called a hallucination.
That's funny.
So
Why do they call it a hallucination?
And that's just what they call it. And so you have to know that, and you have to be on the lookout for that.
Yeah.
So it's not plugged to the internet, so it's not always up to date. It makes things up. Then there are things like it's terrible at math.
Oh, really?
Which is shocking. So
that is shocking.
I had heard this, but I found this out when we were at we went to this restaurant. We had the best pancake of our life.
Uh-huh.
It was made in this skillet, like it was thick and it was like crunchy on the outside, like a brownie, but like dense and gooey on the ends. It was amazing.
It's not in Nashville, is it?
No, it was in New York at one of the Auberge properties.
Yeah, those are really good. I've had those old style pancakes. They're fantastic.
Yeah. And I asked if they'd be willing to give us the recipe.
Yeah.
And the waitress went back and the chef totally wrote out a recipe, like on a meal ticket. When she gave it to me, it was in grams, and it was the ratios were what they batch for a whole restaurant for the day. So I took a picture of it, put it into ChatGPT and said, convert this from grams to cups, tablespoons, teaspoons. And it totally did it.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided to fact check it. And I said, 1,200 grams of this is how many cups?
Mm-hmm.
And it was totally wrong.
Yeah.
Totally wrong.
Right.
Totally wrong. So its ability to do math and conversions, you got to hard fact check that. I remember this was a company, they were trying, based on the past 3 years of historicals, CPG company, they were looking by SKU, by store, what the sales velocity had been for the last 3 years. And based on that, plus some other conditions, to predict what the velocity would be for the 3 years going forward. And I wrote a prompt and put that whole thing in. And I mean, AI was walking us through what it was doing. It was telling us where the file was off, like the data wasn't clean. It started writing code to fix all of it. We literally watched it work with itself for over 10 minutes, where it kept hitting errors. And it was like, well, here's what I'm going to do to solve the problem. And it would write the code on its own without me taking any further action. And it was never able to get it done. And this is actually where I got the thought leader versus thought partner idea. Is the CEO stood up to the team and said, guys, I made a mistake. I asked AI to be the thought leader when it should have just been my thought partner. And when I heard that was the first time I ever heard that language. I grabbed my pen and paper so fast. And I was like, oh my gosh. And this is how so much of what's in the book lands with people, is because I literally spend every day. I'm in front of my ideal reader or customer, talking to them and like hearing what's in their mind, to the point that like when I speak, people are like, are you reading my thoughts? It's like, I know what you're thinking.
What? You may not know this, but how and why is it so bad at math? I
Dude,
thought
I
that's
don't
what computers were so good at.
I know.
So is it making some trade-off that it's good with
I don't know.
better with language and bad at math? Because Excel is pretty good at math.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Why didn't they just plug the Excel into the LLM and
It will get fixed.
okay, interesting.
But this is one of the, again, for me personally,
Yeah.
this is my thought process. I only have so many hours in the day.
Yeah.
There's only so many questions I can ask myself. I want to ask the right questions that are focused on the things that allow me to get into action and make an impact.
Right.
I don't spend a lot of time worrying. I just know all that matters to me as a CEO. I know it doesn't work.
Yeah.
The end.
So skip it. Yeah.
Skip it.
Got
Move
it.
on to the next thing.
What about when you go the earlier example you gave of analyzing financial statements? Is that
That actually is pretty good. That actually is
so
pretty
it has
good.
enough mathematical wherewithal to analyze financial statements, but not perform calculation.
Correct. And sometimes the calculations can work, but
You know what's funny? Actually, you say this. I was using Midjourney recently, the image generator.
yes,
And I just stumbled upon the realization that if you put words in quotations, it would put those words in the image that it generates. But it kept misspelling the words I put in quotations.
correct.
So do you know what's going on there?
Because these image generators still, when it comes to creating an image that's descriptive, it can do it.
Yeah.
If you want it to have text over the image, it's just not there yet.
Yeah.
It's just not there yet.
So there's something about these LLMs specializing in one category causing them to be not so good in another category.
And this is where you start to realize when people are like, oh, it's going to take my job. I'm like, you need to realize it's really good at some things. It's not good at everything.
Yeah.
The moment you actually become an AI driven leader and like you're using this on a day-to-day basis, you realize there are a lot of things you do as humans that this will not replace, but it certainly can enhance.
Yeah.
But you can acknowledge any fear or hesitation or anxiety you might have. And I would encourage you to still move forward anyways. Because even if it is a threat, I want to know my enemy
Yeah.
in order to figure out how to win. But in the process, I realized it wasn't an enemy. It could be an ally.
Yeah. Fascinating. Okay. One last question. I'll get you out of here. I would be remiss if I did not ask you about Bitcoin. We talk about
Why, you like Bitcoin or something?
Bitcoin a lot. It is my one and only tattoo, as you may have noticed.
I did.
Do these technologies dovetail together? Are they in conflict? What are the implications of them? Where does Bitcoin and AI meet, if at all?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know because if I think about, there's a scarce amount of it. There's a blockchain. Where does AI come in? I really don't know. Now, could I see people using AI based on market conditions to try to predict what's going to happen with Bitcoin? Sure. I mean, think about, well, why don't I turn on you? What are the things when you think about Bitcoin that require you to think?
What are the things when I think about Bitcoin that require me to think?
Yeah.
That is a very tricky question. I mean,
When when it comes to Bitcoin,
yeah.
what are the thoughts that you are having or questions that you are searching for answers on?
Well, the namesake of the show is a good start. What is money? I don't think it is a widely defined word. It's got a very standard economics definition, but it also has all these other more niche definitions. So
I actually got a great one for you
what's that?
because you're into philosophy.
I think I'm inclined to philosophy. Yeah.
Dude, you started quoting stuff. I'm looking at the books on this thing. Like, you're into philosophy.
Yeah.
Even your answer was philosophical. You ever thought about asking it to adopt the role of some of your favorite philosophers to have a conversation with you about what is money?
Ask the LLM to play the role of philosophers and talk to me about money. No, I haven't done that yet. I haven't done any of the role playing. I discovered that today with you.
There you go. So I know somebody who his favorite thing to do is to ask AI to adopt the persona of some of his favorite philosophers, and they will have a conversation back and forth about a topic.
Interesting.
Now, for you, I think I know what you're doing tonight.
Got a lot of things on the list now.
Now, what goes through my head is that a 20% use case that's going to drive 80% of your results. Because for a guy who wrote a book about AI, I actually don't care about AI. I care about you hitting your goals.
Yeah.
I care about you living the kind of life that you
Right.
want to live. If this use case helps you do
Right.
that, you chase. If it
Yeah.
doesn't, you ignore.
Yeah.
I don't want to shoehorn AI into Bitcoin just for the sake of shoehorning AI into Bitcoin.
No. I don't think so either. And I mean, just to give you a little more context, there was a guest here recently that I don't know if he was making the point or we just kind of got to the point where we were thinking that if these AI agents are at some point, which I think they already are doing this, going to interact with themselves, that there would need to be, they start operating as like independent businesses in a way. There would need to be flows of funds between them, right?
100%.
Okay, well, you can't do that with fiat rails, not efficiently at least, because the transaction costs are really high, the settlement times are really long. It's highly inefficient, right? It's
Yes.
antiquated industrial age
Yes.
monetary rails, whereas Bitcoin, specifically layer 2 plus Bitcoin, like Lightning Network enabled, which is super fast, instant final settlement, almost zero fee. That would be the ideal rails to enable
and
AI.
this is where I think you get into the world of AI agents, which whereas an LLM is just predicting the next word, an AI agent is like an LLM that can then take action
Yes,
on your
exactly.
behalf.
Exactly.
So
the
the
action
ability,
taking requires money, basically.
bingo.
Yeah.
And that's where I think there could be an interface here in terms of, oh, well, I want you to post my car. I want you to get between X and Y price. And when you get the right price, I want you to negotiate with them. And if you think it's a good deal based on all the research you've done, I want you to sell the car and
Yes.
close the deal.
Yeah.
Do I believe that that is coming? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That for sure makes sense. Sorry, I'll leave you with this, but the example that I asked, and we weren't really sure, it was kind of just left up in the air, is like, what if an author took, we were using, I think, Ernest Hemingway as an example, assuming he was still alive. He
Yeah.
like took his entire body of work, feeds it to an LLM, and says, hey, I want you to continue writing books like me, release one per year for the next 100 years after I die. And I'm going to attach a bunch of Bitcoin to this LLM as well to help you pay for publication or whatever distribution you may need. And there's a way to write Bitcoin now. I actually don't know if this is out, but it is a theoretical possibility that you can write it in such a way that the Bitcoin it has a time lock, basically. So if you put 100 Bitcoin into this smart contract or whatever it may be, it would only release one Bitcoin every year for the next 100 years. Right? You could set that time lock. And so the thought experiment was like, well, what if this was a business and this guy is selling books and it's accumulating Bitcoin, and maybe it was designed or programmed to never sell that Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
So it just became its own independent AI entrepreneur, AI author, and it's just making money. And it just would live for as long as it was programmed to live. And it's like, what? That just starts to become mind-boggling. It's like entrepreneurs are no longer exclusively human, perhaps.
So this is where, when you said, where does this go? And I said, we really don't know.
Yeah.
It's like you couldn't imagine Uber
Right.
when the internet came out. What you're outlining right now, by the way, 2 to 5 years out, if I had to guess.
Crazy.
So what does 20 years out look like? What does 50 years out look like? Our brains can't even comprehend. But this is why I think it's so important that people wake up and just make the commitment to start using this on a daily basis so you become an AI-driven leader. It's not about becoming the technical expert or the AI expert of your company. It's about you understanding that this technology is going to be more disruptive than any technology we've ever seen. And in every disruption comes opportunity.
Yeah.
Those that adopt the right mindset, that use this to enhance them, are going to be the ones that are going to have an amazing ride ahead.
It's fantastic advice. It sounds a lot like the fitness advice I give. It's like, just get in there and do something. Like, get the reps in. And with the reps comes the interest and comes the study and all the things.
Wait,
It's like,
you work out?
good one. But do the reps, right? Like that, what you're saying, do the reps.
Yeah.
Pick it up, use it, put the sticky note on your desk, remind yourself. The book is The AI Driven Leader. Geoff, thank you for coming and talking to me. Do you have any parting words of wisdom, or would you also just like to share where my audience can find out more about you or your work?
Sure. The website is aileadership.com. That's the company, AI Leadership. We focus on leaders specifically who want to drive strategy and strategic thinking and how they use AI to enhance their strategic thinking and their strategy of their company. The core of the company is that executive network called The Collective. So we are just on a mission to build the world's largest network of the most talented AI-driven leaders in the world who realize that the path to winning is not actually in having all the answers around AI. It's in surrounding yourself with the right people, asking the right questions, and having access to collective knowledge. Because I knew things about AI today that you didn't. You know things about Bitcoin that I don't, but there's a unique collaboration there where 1 + 1 can equal 11. You do that at scale, we will create the future of work. So you can learn all about that at aileadership.com. The thing that I will leave you with is, this is not about the technology. This is about you and who you can become. I shared it. It was literally a year and just under 1 month ago, a year and 28 days ago, if we're being exact, that I said I'm going to write a book about this and I'm going to build a company about this. I knew I wanted it to be about AI, strategy, and leadership. Frankly, I didn't feel qualified to write the book. And I didn't feel qualified to build the company. While I had been put in charge of AI for this big steel company out of India, I still felt like an imposter. And it's like, the more you know about AI, the less you realize you know. And I remember thinking, I actually said to Charlie, how do I write a book when I don't know what the book is about and I don't feel qualified to write it? And he goes, that's a question you're going to have to figure out. And I remember thinking to myself, do I become that person and then write the book? Or do I start writing the book and force it to make me become that person?
When you start walking the path of peers, I think has been said.
I chose the latter. And I said, I'm going to force myself to do so much research that I will write the best book in the world for leaders on AI. And it changed who I was as a result. Everything that you're hearing from me has happened in the last year.
Amazing.
So the version of me a year ago could not have had this conversation. So here's why I share this with you, is that right now you're anchoring your identity to who you've been in the past versus letting go of who you've been and reimagining who you can become. And I think most people are grossly underestimating who they can become over the next year if they really get into the driver's seat with this.
Those are very inspiring, motivational words. And thank you again for coming out here. This
It's
has
my
been
pleasure.
awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, click here to find more just like it, and here to find our most recent episode. Also, make sure to like this video to help shine light on the corruption of money, and be sure to subscribe to this channel to stay connected.